to item number 12, I think it is, which is Blackdown Hills National Landscapes Management Plan. I've had a lot of input into that with MDDC, not voted on it at Cabinet, but in order not to bring anybody into disrepute, I think it could be seen that I have a predetermined position. So therefore I will not speak, but I would stay in the room and I will not vote on it either. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Simon. Richard.
Yeah, it was flashing. Sorry. I'm the chair of the East Devon landscape through my work as a district councillor at East Devon. So in a similar vein to Simon, I'll accuse myself from that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Yeah, I think if you just check your mic that it comes on, because I think if they're warming up, they flash first before they come on. Oh, yeah, Cheryl, yours is hopefully in a minute it'll go red.
Oh.
Right, good. I think that's all. Everyone mic'd up. Good stuff. Item agenda 3, the minutes. Are you happy for me to sign the minutes for the meeting, the previous meeting, on the 20th? That is the one on the 25th of June. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We all okay with that? Thank you. Item 4, items requiring urgent attention. I do have one item of urgent attention, and that is around an increase in bus fares introduced by Stagecoach. Anyway, I'm going to ask Cheryl if you want to lead on, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. So it's over the past couple of days, but mostly yesterday, I had a large number of people contacting me about the increase in bus fares. So they've Stagecoach have removed the option to have a return fare, so you have to buy 2 singles, and that's effectively raised the prices by 81%. And I've been told that there was no communication that this was going to happen, and the people who have contacted me are parents of children who are getting the public bus. So in my case, it's mainly from children going from Bideford to Great Torrington School. And they've obviously, the families have budgeted for the expected amount of what it was going to cost them, and now it's gone up significantly with no warning, and there's real worry about what this will mean and whether they will be able to afford to send them to the same school. And I've also had a letter from the head teacher of Great Torrington School, and that went to myself as well as Sir Geoffrey Cox and Ian Room as MPs for the area. And it also affects children, well, it affects the whole of Devon, and I understand it affects national service of Stagecoach. So I thank you for letting me raise it today under urgent matters, because it is very urgent, and I hope that we can explore the solutions. I think there are options for term riders, but there's issues with the boundaries within this, but it would be great if we could open up discussions with Stagecoach to look at the options to make it affordable for families to get to the schools that they need to get to. And it's not just school children that this affects. The removal of the return fare affects everyone living. It affects rural areas as well. Obviously, as Cabinet Member for Rural Affairs, this is something I'm concerned about, and the impact upon people able to get the bus.
No, thank you, Cheryl. We've got a recommendation. I mean, I hope members got it. Hi, Andrew. We brought an urgent. Okay, so you know what it is about. Yeah. So the recommendation is that we write to the managing director of Stagecoach, expressing our disappointment and concern about the impact that these charges are going to have on families. And then Jackie, as Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Biodiversity and Chair of the Devon Enhanced Bus Partnership, that you'll raise that as an urgent item at your next partnership board meeting next week, this time next week. You okay with that? Okay, so those are the two recommendations. Can you just put them up on the screen, or are they, so we know exactly what they are, or if I read them, I'll read them out then, so members know. But basically, that we write to Peter Knight, the Managing Director of Stagecoach, highlighting their extreme concern. Oh, there we are. Preempt me, yeah. So excellent. Cheryl, do you want to move those recommendations?
Yeah, very happy to move those. Thank you.
And Jackie, or Simon second those. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Sorry, Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to speak on that or no. Okay, lovely. Right. Agenda item 5, announcements, none to my knowledge. Item 6, petitions, none to my knowledge. 7, questions from members of the council, none received. Questions from members of the public, none received. So agenda item 9, corporate plan. And over to you, James.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor James Witkowski, Cabinet Member for Finance. Leader, the Corporate Plan 2025-26 sets out Devon County Council's corporate priorities for the year ahead. It is both a practical framework for immediate improvement and a preparatory bridge towards the longer term ambitions that will be formalised in the strategic plan for 25-29. Designed during a period of organisational transformation and external uncertainty, this plan identifies the areas where we must act with urgency, focus and unity to deliver for our residents, restore trust and strengthen the council's long-term resilience. The plan is built around a one council approach, a commitment to shared responsibility, joined up delivery and consistent performance standards across all directorates and services. This integrated ethos is reflected in the 7 cross-cutting one council priorities that anchor the corporate plan. These are not simply thematic areas, but whole council programmes of change, each with clear objectives, implementation milestones and performance indicators. At the forefront of these priorities is the urgent and whole system improvement of children's services and SEND provision. We recognise that current performance in these areas has not met the standard that children and families in Devon deserve. That is why improving outcomes for children and young people, particularly those with special education needs and disabilities, is a central and unifying theme of this plan. We are strengthening our early help offer, improving the timeliness of quality assessments, investing in inclusive education and reducing reliance on out-of-county placements. Across the council, services are aligning around this ambition, recognising that delivering for children is a shared duty, not just the responsibility of one team alone. Financial sustainability and governance is another defining priority. This council must remain a strong grip on its finances if it is to safeguard frontline services, deliver value for money and regain financial credibility. Over the coming year, we will deliver a balanced 25-26 budget, develop a sustainable medium-term financial plan and strengthen commissioning, contract management and debt recovery. In doing so, we will align resource decisions more closely with strategic intent and increase transparency around financial risks and trade-offs. Leader, equally important is our commitment to improving the customer experience. Residents deserve a council that is accessible, responsive and easy to engage with. In 25-26, we will launch our customer experience strategy, redesign end-to-end customer journeys and embed consistent standards across all channels. This will be complemented by improved complaints handling and a clearer public service offer that builds trust and clarity in our interactions with the people we serve. We also recognise that meaningful improvement depends on a capable, confident and stable workforce. Our future workforce programme focuses on building conditions for a modern, agile and inclusive organisation. We will reduce our dependence on agency staff, embed our organisational values, launch new leadership pathways and ensure all staff are supported to develop and deliver. The connection between workforce well-being, organisational culture and public service outcomes is central to this priority. Other key cross-cutting priorities include preparedness for our Care Quality Commission inspection of NL Care, the development of a new asset strategy to rationalise and decarbonise our estate, and our engagement with government on the future of local government in Devon. The local government reorganisation programme is particularly significant, with a full business case due in November 2025. While this process is externally driven, we are committed to ensuring that any structural change enhances local accountability, improves service delivery, and reflects the best interests of Devon's communities. Beneath these cross-cutting programmes, the plan also details directorate-level improvement priorities, reflecting the specific challenges and opportunities within core service areas, from boosting attendance and reducing exclusion in schools, to cutting waiting times in adult social care assessments, to delivering major contract reform and enhancing public health outcomes. These priorities are vital to the everyday lives of Devon residents and the future resilience of our services. To ensure we remain accountable for delivery, the plan is underpinned by a refreshed corporate scorecard that will track key performance indicators across all priority areas. This performance will be reported quarterly to Cabinet, the Executive Leadership Team and Audit Committee, and annually to full Council. We're also strengthening the alignment between performance, risk and budget reporting so that leaders have a single joined up view of organisational health and delivery. In summary, Leader, the corporate plan for 2025-26 is a focused, ambitious and necessary statement of intent. It recognises the scale of the challenges we face in financial, operational and reputational, but it also reflects our determination to rebuild, to improve and to serve. By focusing on what matters most and working as one council, we will lay the foundations for a more capable, trusted and forward-looking Devon County Council. Leader, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, James, for that comprehensive précis of our corporate plan, which is, you know, it's ambitious, exciting, slightly daunting, but I think it's, it's what we're here to do. Kerry, oh, there you are. Hi, Kerry. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, thank you, Leader.
Members, over to you. Dan, and then I'll come to you, Denise. Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And yeah, I congratulate the director and Councillor Bukowski for an excellent piece of work pulled together in a short space of time since we looked at this as a corporate group. My question, you wouldn't be surprised to know, is around my portfolio and specifically on what on my screen is at page 29 of the report, which is the Directorate Improvement Priorities, and specifically 5.2, the Climate Change, Environment and Transport. Question either for the Cabinet member or indeed for you, Leader, is do we want in this section of the plan to reference something which you've talked about repeatedly, which is the parish protocol? There is reference, for example, at 5.2 priority 1 to improving website information. Do we want to make reference to improving website sorry, it's page 29 on my screen. It's 5.2, so that would be page 21 on the big numbering system, or page 15 on the little numbering system, or page 29 on the computer. I'm really sorry, but those are your options for your magic numbers. It is at 5.2 anyway, at the Directorate Improvement Priorities. And so my question, Leader, or to Councillor Bukowski, is do we want to make reference in there? We're talking about how we know we need to improve communications and the quality of information from our elected members to the public, as well as town and parish councils. Should we in there, as this is in 25-26, should we say improve website information, and should we make some reference to the protocol that you want to bring in, whereby we are allowing parish councils, where they wish, to prioritise schemes that they self-fund, notwithstanding the fact that the council has the duty to actually carry out that work, but if they wish to expedite any such schemes, they could so do through self-financing, subject to policy. I don't know whether we want to have something in there just to crystallise that as a priority.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that is a top priority around, particularly around highways maintenance, and also smaller schemes that parishes are keen on, or parishes and towns. I mean, James, do you feel that that's already contained in there, or is it something that we could add in just to say, priority 2, isn't it? Improvement in communication of priorities.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor James Wachowski. Yeah, I mean, it could go in priority 1 or priority 2. I think if members feel it's important that we draw attention to that in the document, then yeah, I can't see why we couldn't add it as a bullet point.
Okay, well, I think let's do that then. Dan, I mean,
I just think it's, you've been quite clear, Leader, that you want us to move in that direction. There's an appetite from the director. There's an appetite from myself as portfolio holder, as cabinet member. So let's put something in there just so that we know it's one of our priorities.
Okay, right, excellent. Jackie, I'll come in. Is it on that particular item, or it is? Okay, and then I'll come to Denise. Jackie.
I just wholeheartedly agree with what's being said here, that I do think we've got quite an open door with a lot of our town and parish councils. I think there's, in fairness, quite a lot of frustration out there that, you know, we've had this kind of, you know, the constraints and the austerity has really hit them hard, and they're the ones that get it in the neck when all the residents turn up. So the opportunity to say to residents and themselves, you know, should we raise the precept? Should we actually do more? And how can we do it? I think that, you know, showing that emphasis in our corporate plan marries that really nicely. So I think this is really important. Yeah.
Good. So can I suggest that we leave the exact wording to Meg? Are you okay with that? I mean, you've heard the sort of mood of the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely fine with that, and I'll get that added.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Denise.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. Well done. Good work, everyone. I've got 4 things. I don't know whether you want me to deal with each one separately. Shall I just plough through?
Why don't you go through the 4 and then hopefully we can pick them off one at a time.
Okay, so the first one is page 17. We're talking about education, obviously my cabinet role in SEND. I'm wondering we should have a 16 to 18 education strategy looked at. We've got 6th forms closing and have closed across the county. We're seeing a lot of children now coming to Exeter, and I wondered if we ought to be looking at that and making sure that that provision is adequate. That's the first one. I have then got page 20. We're talking about supporting and challenging settings to reduce those on part-time timetables. I think we need some recognition in there that for some children part-time timetables are very valuable. We need for children with emotionally based school avoidance, for example, they may be eminently sensible. So I think we need to slightly reword it. Time constrained, realistic part-time timetables should be encouraged in some cases, I think. Page 26, next one. I've got about improving digital infrastructure. I wonder if we can urgently put on here to be looking at the SEND and the school's transport IT systems. I know that they are in the pipeline, but I think they're really important to get that sorted out. Both have been described to me as not, EHCP hub as well, both being described as not quite fit for purpose and in urgent need of being looked at. And I think that in particular, the transport one would save us an awful lot of money if we invested some money in it now to get that sorted out, such a big budget. KPIs, page 29. I have just thought about the fact that vacancies is a useful KPI in human resources. And also, it's not my remit, but climate, environment and transport, the volume of waste overall should be coming down, as well as the percentage of that being recycled. So that's the key measure, really, making sure that that is reduced. Children's services, what is the, I can't read my own writing, IBP KPI 2, page 30. Sorry, just a quick look. What was I trying to say? Bear with me. We need something in the KPIs about the percentage of appeals that overturn the decisions made by panels and the percentage rejected EHC needs assessments that go to appeal. Something more meaningful about why we're rejecting and if indeed they're correct to be rejected. Otherwise, they, you know, if they get dropped, then there's no problem, is there? Yeah. So sorry, not worded that very well, but something needs to be looked at there. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Denise. So the first things first, the 16 to 18 education strategy. I totally agree with that. I don't know, Phil, if because it's just I know that it's sorry to drag you in there at short notice, but I know that it's something that we've talked about in the combined county authority. We've got an item that sort of covers it a bit on item 13 coming up on the agenda. Just if you could just, you know, that we are working towards that, because I think it is absolutely crucially important.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it's something that we've been discussing over the last few weeks. The sixth form piece is part of it, but there's actually a wider piece about transitions and about making sure that we're aligning a lot of the things that cabinet members are doing across your various portfolios. So yeah, I think the proposal is that we do take that forward, and adding it as a bullet, I'm looking at Kerry, would be useful. I think having that we put together a 16 to 18 participation or just general strategy as part of our work programme for this year. The team's there. We've now got some resource to do it. I think it'd be a good time to pull it all into a single place, and it plays into some of the education issues that we've been talking around elsewhere. So yeah, that works.
Kerry.
So I just wanted to also add that we want to look at the demographics as well about provision across the piece for post-16 education. And there is definitely a rural and coastal element to the place. So there's a place-based aspect to that, which we'd be very happy to look at. We've got quite a lot of data and evidence.
Thank you. What was it? This? Yeah, sorry. Donna.
Yeah, so just picking up Councillor Bickley's points, absolutely a strategic approach is required to that 16 to 18. I would just suggest that we consider the good practice and sustainability that is happening at this moment in time, and some of our really strong and growing rural 6 to 18 provisions, experienced that firsthand in North Devon last week, where we're seeing increasing numbers and sustainability. So I think bringing the best practice to the table is going to be an important part of that strategy. And also we know that there are possible developments in the college provision across Devon, and I would ask that that strategy ensures that we're involved in the partnership around those decisions about the future provision. So absolutely, I think we need a strategic approach, and we can communicate to everyone a timeline around that strategy. Picking up the point about the wording of part-time tables, yes, we have to be sensitive for young people here and recognise the complexity of the need for part-time education at times. So absolutely apologise for not getting the sensitivity of that right for young people who may be listening. We don't want to see it as a negative connotation all the time. Sometimes it can be the right intervention at the right time. So we could work with the cabinet lead on the wording around about that. Certainly the KPI linked to appeals and the stress linked in that with families. Absolutely, we do have that information, and I think it's really important to keep line of sight on that in terms of the legal process, the possible changes that might come with the white paper and their own performance in that area. So if the cabinet lead for performance is okay, then I would suggest that additional KPIs would support that. And sorry, Councillor Bickley, I don't know if Director of Performance and Partnerships can pick up your other points.
So we're very happy to look at the scorecard regarding the send aspects there, but also take a view from Meg on the volume of waste and Sam on the staffing metrics. So I invite colleagues to come in on those points, but there's no reason why we can't amend the scorecard.
And just to add in the question about the send timeline for digital development, in this item, it talks about major transformation. We have a new care placement system coming on board for adults and children's, which is a major project for us, and we're looking at how to accelerate that timeline. When we've been looking at that work, we prioritised that first, but I do think that having a timeline for the send and education piece, it was the ambition to do that too. So thank you for picking that up, and I would respond by suggesting to you that we get a timeline on that, but we're transparent in terms of some of the challenges and work on that to bring up maybe a more in detailed report back to Cabinet in terms of that digital development. But Chair, I know there might be another director wishing to come in on that matter, but you absolutely raise a very valid point.
Yeah, Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Bickley, for your questions, comments in relation to digital. Just to follow on from Donna's points, absolutely, I think it's critical that we have that timeline within our priorities set out under 5.6 in the actual corporate plan for transformation of business services. We talk about a digital strategy. Implicit in that is my expectation that we include system replacement and improvement roadmap. I'm very happy if members wish to consider whether we include that explicitly within that improvement plan. But that's fully in the intention. I'm very happy to give you and Councillor Clist and Councillor Wiskowski a briefing on the work that we're currently doing an improvement plan around, in particular in relation to SEND and EHCPs. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just think on that, Matthew, yes, I think explicitly to be part of that. Thank you for that. Jackie.
Thank you. Yeah, I welcome this. It's a tough thing to sort of come in and start looking at the corporate plan and really make the suggestions. And I think this has been really good. The only thing I would say about climate change, I just think maybe somewhere in there we need to have even a priority 5, which has nothing else with it, but just to promote and and increase our work towards zero carbon targets, because that's quite very cross-cutting. But I just feel it's like it needs to be absolutely nailed in there, because otherwise we're kind of talking around rather than actually nailing something. I don't know if that's appropriate to put it in there, and the setup that you've got perhaps doesn't sort of have it in there, but I think it's like it just needs to be in there. I mean, I agree with what's been said about waste. I mean, those are the things that would then feed back into that, because anything that's got a kind of a carbon footprint, we can actually look at how we can modify it, but it needs to be in there as a priority because it's underpinning and all trying to achieve.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree about that. I mean, I don't know what other members feel. Meg, so that would be, I mean, I think on the KPI, I mean, first of all, about the waste, I mean, in the waste hierarchy, reduction is right at the top. So absolutely, we should have a KPI about residual waste and percentage of residual waste. And then the point that Jackie raises about having a more general about our carbon footprint and trying to, the move to carbon zero. If is that something that we could put in there?
Yes, it could be. I mean, this was primarily looking at areas of improvement as opposed to the things we're trying to do as a matter of course, which that is, but we could add that in terms of trying to accelerate if that's what Cabinet feel we should be doing.
Yeah, members, I mean, I'd support that, and I mean, I think Jackie's right, because that's the headline figure really around climate change is our carbon footprint, and if we can see a reduction in that, then that's we're moving in the right direction. I mean, I appreciate that everything else, the more granular sort of KPIs around that would play into.
I think it's important to emphasise that our carbon footprint reduction is actually quite good at the moment in terms of the baseline that we've got.
Well, let's celebrate that then, and celebrate that in as a KPI that we can champion that. I think that's good.
If I just may add, I mean, it's just that it's not. I just think it's very easy sometimes to get a bit complacent because we think we all kind of accept it, but when it kind of drops off of agendas, it's amazing how things kind of just we don't sort of actually use that measure. It's like water quality. When you actually look at water quality, it's a baseline for a lot of what else is going on. The other thing I would just say is that something I know that I know we haven't got the money for it, but I would like us somehow in here to express that we would like to return to universal access to youth services for young people, because we've got so many unhappy young people, and universal youth services, access to youth services makes such a difference in local areas. I know it's a big challenge because I know there's not even the youth workers available these days, but as I've mentioned many times in this room, actually, the project that I chair, TRAY, Tropolis Rural Area Youth Engagement Project, serving currently about 1,200 young people in 8 different centres particularly around the South Hams and part of Teignbridge. I think it's something that, it's a model that can be used. It again fits in with what we talked about working with our local town and parish councils. So it's not putting the onus on us, but it means that we could actually be a vehicle for actually encouraging others to do it. I'm not going to suggest 1 minute we expand trade because I've got enough on my plate, but it's a workable model. And I think it could make a difference, because otherwise everything goes to targeted, which is picking up at the end of when there's a problem, rather than actually just opening the door and having facilities for youngsters to just be themselves and enjoy life.
No, thank you for that, Jackie. I think as far as the youth services are concerned, I'd be a bit nervous about just putting a KPI in there now. We're just setting ourselves up to fail, although I appreciate it is incredibly important, but I think we need that we need to work out how we are going to deliver that particular service. James, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just want to obviously remind members, this is obviously our corporate plan for this year. What we're also working on is the emerging strategic plan, which will have lots more detail and bigger ambitions. Obviously, that's going through a process at the moment with members. It will be going to full council in September, and that's kind of where I would expect to see a big ambition around youth services to be discussed. This really needs to focus in for the remainder of this year and what we can realistically deliver. There's no point putting things in that we're not going to deliver by the end of the year. So hold that thought for the strategic plan.
Fair comment. I'll accept that.
Great. Anyone else? Andrew, did you want to?
Chairman, I've not really got much to add because at the end of the day, it's your plan. It's clearly dynamic because it's changing already. So that's good to see.
Well, you know, Andrew, I mean, it's following on from the previous administration as well. So
you had a good example. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All I was going to say is, I think my only question is how are you going to report back on your KPIs moving forward? Because obviously you set them. I just wonder how we're going to hear. Is it going to be monthly, quarterly?
I think it's quarterly to cabinet, if I'm right. Yeah, is that correct? Yeah, so quarterly to cabinet, Andrew, and you're right. I mean, you know, we can write all the reports we like, but in the end, it's about the delivery. And if we're not delivering, then that's when, you know, we should rightly be scrutinised and criticised.
Nothing I could disagree with.
No, well, okay, well, thank you for that. Any more, James?
Thank you, Lee. Just to clarify on the reporting, obviously it will come to cabinet quarterly, but also audit are going to receive it as well, and full council annually. So it'll be very transparent. And of course, if there are any questions, then the members are very welcome to come to cabinet or to me directly, and we can answer any queries on KPIs.
No, thank you, James. And before we go, just a massive thank you, James, for all the work that you've done, and Kerry. I think it's an incredibly impressive piece of work in a short space of time. You know, and it really sets us on a sound footing with a direction and a focus. We know where we need to go, and now all we've got to do is deliver it. So thank you for that. Right. Did you want to move the recommendations? Oh, sorry, wait there. Maria wants to.
Leader, could I just suggest the recommendation is going to need a slight tweaking to take account of the amendments that you've just agreed. So I'll suggest that A is approve the corporate plan 2025-2026, subject to the agreed additional KPIs and priorities, which sets out the council's key priorities for the year ahead, including a focus on organisational improvement and the directorate level, and to ensure high quality services for residents.
Thank you. Yeah, are we all happy with that? I think that takes into account, and thank you for the input.
Just need to consider the recommendation that's come through from scrutiny, from the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Committee. I think it's important that we perhaps the cabinet lead could provide some information related to that, having been at scrutiny committee chair.
So that's at the bottom of the recommendation from the meeting on the 14th of July from the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Committee. So the recommendation of the cabinet thanks the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Committee for its views and observation as outlined above, and will consider how to ensure this is achieved. James, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that, or Richard, why don't you come in? This is your area.
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet Member, Adult Social Care, Councillor Richard Keeling. I'm Vice Chair on that committee, scrutiny, and we set out our 4 priorities for that were embedded within that. I'm happy to support that. Absolutely.
Okay, so are we happy with that? Okay, great. So that's a recommendation there. I think has that been dealt with, or is that part of the overall recommendations? That's been dealt with. Okay, so it's the recommendations as they are on the order paper, with the amendments from Maria that basically takes into account of what we've raised here about KPIs, about the SEND transformation, about the wording around part-time timetables, wage reduction, transport, and of course the 16 to 18-year-olds, again, which is, you know, I think I can't emphasise how important that is, because it's a live issue. You know, with Oakhampton possibly closing, so it's absolutely, you know, something we need to work at pace. So James, are you happy to propose those recommendations? Do I have a seconder for those? Thanks, Denise. All those in favour, please show. That's great. Thank you very much. Right. Agenda item 10, Destination Xmas Levelling Up Fund, Dinham Way active travel measures. Just to say that I understand Victor wants to say a few words on that. And so Victor, normally the protocol is that if you want to ask a question, group leaders automatically go on the list of speakers. But just so others know that the protocol is that if another member wants to speak on an item, they would normally let the clerk know, so that we've got a list. But I'm, you know, on this occasion, Victor, very happy. Yeah, I can use my discretion, so very happy to hear what you've got to say, because I think it's on this particular item that you wanted to speak. So, but anyway, without further ado, I'll go over to Dan, who will introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So, colleagues, you will have seen the recommendations to approve a list of schemes, basically around a project with which there is a funding envelope of 3.15 million available, of which 90% has come through the Levelling Up Fund. So I'll walk you through the report again. So you will see in the introduction at part 2 that the background to this is that the Dinham Way extension is under construction. It's a really important piece of work. For those of you that know Exmouth, the A376 corridor comes down into the town, and the Dinham Way extension will basically connect the eastern and southern parts of the town with that corridor. Originally, that money was going to be spent in a different area. It was going to be spent around the railway station, public realm improvements, and active travel. A lot of this is around active travel. I think it's really important to emphasise that. But there was public consultation, and the resultant decision was not to go ahead with that part of the scheme. But we still have the money, so we still have that money available. And so, as you would expect, we've looked to reprioritise that in a slightly different direction. So I think the easiest thing to do is, if you have a look at 3, there's a very nice plan that shows the extension, and it also shows for you colour coded the location of the various improved crossings, because of course by improving the road you are making the road busier, and therefore we need, in terms of active travel, to improve crossings. You'll see that they are proposed in 4 separate places: at Meadowview Road, at Gorse Lane, at St John's Road, and at Marley Road. And you'll also see the yellow dot, which is the junction improvement works, as well at Featherbed Lane, Pound Lane, Hallam Road. And this is really important, because what we're basically saying is, if we're going to make Dinham Way necessarily busier, yes, we're going to close Summer Lane, which will become the Green Lane below it, but those other roads around are going to be busier, and therefore, you know, to make sure that we're doing right by active travel and cycling and walking, we need those improved crossings. So I think, really, members, as you go through this is it's a good news story. I mean, you'll see there is public transport provision included on page 39. You will see that there's pavement widening. That's important, because part of the pavement widening means narrowing the carriageway, and as a consequence of that, we need a traffic regulation order to put yellow lines down to stop parking, because obviously narrow carriageway, don't want parking. That's relevant because part of the recommendation is to allow us to advertise that traffic regulation order that we have to do for yellow lines. You'll see that there's extra drainage, which is shown on the map. You'll see there's vehicle activated sign. There's the whole smorgasbord of measures taken here to encourage walking and cycling. But I think most telling is probably at 4 in the options, where you'll see that if we do nothing, any funds not spent will have to be returned to the Department for Transport, as they're only valid for this scheme. Well, I don't think there's anybody around this table who wants us to be giving money back to the Department of Transport, quite frankly, not when we can use it wisely in Devon. You'll see under engagement that there will have to be a statutory consultation as standard where we have TROs. We've just talked about the strategic plan forthcoming. You'll see that there's a scorecard there showing it's well aligned within the strategic plan. At 7, you'll see that there is a county council contribution and district and town council contributions that make up about 10% of the total. And as I say, the rest is coming from the Levelling Up Fund. I think it really is a good news story, this, members. It isn't enough just to extend a road. What we're thinking about here is the ramifications and the knock-on effects that this has on the public. And I think these schemes in the round will encourage safe walking, safe cycling in the area, and will be very much to the benefit of Exmouth. And as such, members, I commend the recommendations to you and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dan. Very comprehensive. Meg, did you want to add anything?
Nothing at this
No?
stage, thank you.
Okay. If I come to you, Jeff, as a local member, I don't know if you want to make some comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, Cabinet and staff. Yeah, Leader, a new link road from the main A376 Exmouth to Hulham Road, Dinham Way is being built and should be completed by the end of this year. The object of the link road is to ease traffic within Exmouth town centre, as Exmouth has a very large holiday camp and large commercial business park north of Exmouth. And traffic will proceed via the link road to the existing Dinham Way to Salterton Road. An opportunity arose for former Councillor Scott and myself to take advantage of Levelling Up funding from the last government to pay for the link road. An extra 4.5 was secured by Councillor Davis to aid Exmouth with what was known as the Exmouth Gateway. Various plans, public consultations and town council meetings were discussed and debated, but unfortunately a way forward could not be found. Rather than returning the funds back to government, Councillor Davis, Scott, myself, our MPs and officers lobbied government to use the funds to, 1, improve safety upon the original Dinham Way, a very busy road, as we've got numerous local groups have been asking for better safety measures for quite a few years. 2, to support active travel from the north of Exmouth to the X Trail. And that is in the region of 3.5 to 4 miles. 3, to provide better and improved crossings for children walking to one of 4 junior schools in the area, including Exmouth Community College. 4, to improve business, employment opportunities and social opportunities to the north of Exmouth, Budley and Exmouth town centres. As you've heard, a series of crossings and road improvements were discussed, and today those plans and designs are placed before you for your approval. On behalf of the residents, visitors, businesses, councillors, MPs and government, we ask you to support this much needed and valued project. And thank you for allowing me to speak this morning.
No, thank you, Jeff, and thank you for all the work that you've done and your colleagues in helping to bring this project forward. Andrew, did you want to add anything? No. Paul, did you? Victor, did you want to say anything, or were you just interested in seeing what was said and how it works?
Thank you, Julian. No, I was not going to speak on this, nor indeed on 20's Plenty, which I'm also very interested in. So just I'll talk with Dan separately on roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Good to see you. Paul.
Thank you, Leader. Paul Arnott, Deputy Leader of the Council. So, of course, we must do this, and I'd like to thank Dan and Meg for bringing this forward today. But what I've just heard is a number of statements of which Dan is completely innocent of post-rationalisation of a catastrophic failure of the people of Exmouth. This money, this Levelling Up Fund money, was meant to originally do something serious around the gateway into Exmouth. And because of what can only be described as the reluctance to work between the then county councillors, or one current county councillor, and the district councillor, and the then MP, Mr. Jupp, the productive stuff that could have happened around the gateway, which was a key part of the East Devon placemaking process, which is still going on, just collapsed. There were people not talking to each other. And what I really welcome now is that we can move forward. Let's just get Dinham Way done. But that's not what was meant to happen. There were meant to be good things happening in the centre of Exmouth. Now, one of the ideas, Councillor Trail, would be right. Nobody wanted to see the underpass there outside the station buried in sort of soil and hardcore. That was a ludicrous idea. But there were other good ideas that were coming forward. But we ran out of road, forgive the pun, and so the county made the decision, well, in which case, since Dinham Way has got a bit more expensive than we think, let's allocate this money to Dinham Way. Fair enough, let's get that done. I welcome the active travel aspects of this hugely, as I'm sure will everybody else. But let's not kid ourselves that this has been a great result for Exmouth, because it hasn't. Basically, what we're doing today is finishing a road that could and should have been finished at any point in the last decade. Be no gain for the centre of Exmouth at all. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Jackie.
Thank you. I hear what you say, Paul, and I understand that frustration. But what I would say is you can't, when there's money kicking around, you have to use it or lose it. And not only that, if you don't use it quick enough, the prices are going up so rapidly thanks to Brexit and all the rest of it, that actually it becomes sort of like you never quite get there, because you keep having to find a bit more money to make what you wanted to do originally happen. So I think this is potentially going to give some benefits to Exmouth, because any active travel does. It seems to have been well consulted on at this level. And, the fact that it's quite a comprehensive plan, it's not just one bit, it actually relates to other sort of active travel routes going on. Ideally, we will see that, there will be behaviour change can be manifested as part of this. And it gets people more in the mood for actually doing things differently, as pedestrians and cyclists. And, importantly, the vulnerable road users who often don't go out at all because it's too dangerous. So I think it's positive, but I think there's perhaps really probably a lesson in there, what you said, that needs to be borne in mind. But yeah, welcome it today. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jackie. And, notwithstanding what Paul said, I mean, I think if we take this scheme in isolation, it's positive. And so hopefully that we can all support that. Did anyone else raise any matters? No. Dan, you happy to?
Yeah, I mean,
recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in so doing, I would say, obviously it sounds like there is a past. There are aspects in the past that perhaps are negative, but there are also aspects that are positive. So let's end on the positive, that actually, the fact that local members secured the money in the first place, and the fact that the money is being spent, fundamentally has got to be a good thing. And to be able to sit at that end of the room as a local member and know that there's millions of pounds being spent on your community, I think all of us as local members would welcome the opportunity to do exactly that. So, notwithstanding what may have happened, I'm very happy to move these recommendations, Leader.
Thank you. And you're happy to second them, Paul? And yeah, can I also, extend my thanks to both the town council and the district council for helping to fund some of this project. That's great that we work together there. So it's being proposed and seconded. Can see all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Right, move on to agenda item 11, adoption of the East Devon National Landscape Management Plan. Jackie.
Thank you. Yes. I think this is one of those good news stories. We've got an excellent national landscape here. There's a legal obligation for us to have a 5-year management plan. So essentially, we're just renewing that. But there's, each 5 years when it comes under review, of course, there's a lot of people looking at it. I think it inspires people to really think about what they have as something that's, really quite outstanding in this area. So I think this is a good report. The work has been done. The consultations have happened. Everybody's happy. So I ask you to support the recommendation to adopt the new management plan for the next 5 years.
Thank you, Jackie. Meg, anything to add?
Nothing at this moment, thank you.
No. Okay. Members, any questions, queries? No, Andrew?
And I'm not an expert on this, so I have to defer to, as you say, lots of consultation and people who know a lot more about it than me. I've got one question that has been raised with me, and that was around the development around St. John in the Wilderness Church. And there was a lot of people saying that that land should be protected. And I'm wondering, what is that plan going to protect that land, especially in view of the government recently announcing it's going to protect wildlife in sensitive areas. So does this plan strengthen that proposed bill that some people wanted to do there?
Like, do you know the answer to that?
I don't, but I will get a response.
Yeah, if we
for you
could
on
get that too, Andrew, that would be great. I mean, Jackie, no, okay. Sorry? No. Jackie, well, Jackie's gonna.
I would just say that that's something we all need to keep an eye on when these things come forward, because I mean, when there's any development plans and proposals, and then we look at what's happening with the government, with the current sort of changes in the planning legislation, which, you know, have been going on for some while, as we know, they've been kind of kicked back, but back out again. I think, you know, looking at what the impacts on our wildlife is a really important thing to do. And at the end of the day, a lot of the devil is in the detail at the local habitat level. So yeah, I think it's good that you've raised this today, and I think it's good that we'll keep an eye out. Thank you.
Just to clarity, the residents say that that has been put in East Devon's plan for building, that's all.
Oh, okay. What?
But the plan is out for Reg 19 consultation.
So nothing still on that. So presumably it will have to, any inspection of it will take this with this adoption of this plan into account when it's coming up with a decision. Dan?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Can I just talk about the management plan document itself and just say what a really excellent document it is. I mean, and how well laid out it is. I particularly like the fact that, you know, as somebody who doesn't know the area very well, I can see straight away what the team is actually doing, what the targets are. You know, it reads as a really useful document, and I think, you know, a lot of praise should be given to those that have put it together. You know, it's easy on the eye and it's easy to use, and I just think it's worth saying that publicly.
No, thank you for that, Dan, and Meg, I hope you can pass it on to officers involved. And Jackie, thank you. Right, so Jackie, are you happy to move adoption of the plan?
Yeah, I move the recommendation to adopt the plan. I'll
Yeah.
ask for support from fellow cabinet.
Yeah, and seconder, please. Dan, happy to second it. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Right, and obviously you've abstained, Richard, because of your interests. Right, so item agenda 12 is the Blackdown Hills National Landscape Management Plan. Over to you again, Jackie.
Well, this is just pretty much the same, but it's just, you know, a different national landscape. So again, we're very lucky to have so much fantastic national landscape in our county. So this is the Blackdown Hills National Landscape Management Plan. Again, it's the 5-year obligation. So I ask you to support that we adopt the new Blackdown Hills National Landscape Plan for the next 5 years. As has been said, you know, we get very good reports for this. So I think, you know, I won't take more of our time, but I hope people read it and enjoy if you haven't, enjoy the reading of it and support the adoption.
Thank you, Jackie. Meg? No, okay. Members, any questions, queries? And Andrew?
Same comment as before, it's not my expertise.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right, no, thank you. Right, in which case, Jackie, you happy to move the adoption of the plan?
So move.
Yeah, and both, and who will second that? Dan again, thank you. All those in favour, please show. Excellent, thank you. Right. Yeah, so yeah, Simon abstained there again because he declared an interest at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you. Right, agenda item 13. So this is me, and Bill has left the meeting. Yeah. Look, you know, this is a very good report. It explains exactly where the problems are and why they're there. And then in some senses, it covers what we're going to do about it. I have to say, when I read this report, and I know it's in my name as well, that it sort of worries me slightly that it's sort of idealistic. And when I say idealistic, it's sort of like it's taking the picture in an ideal world, i.e. there's a lot of things that we would love to do here, but I doubt very much that we have the capacity or the resources to do it all. You know, if you look at the recommendations, it talks about mentoring on every single priority, that the children in particular cases will have mentoring. I mean, do we genuinely have all those people to do that mentoring? It then moves on to a talking about them not less mentoring and more about it uses another phrase. So I think that I think that it's in danger of sort of being oblivious to reality. You know, are we genuinely going to be able to deliver all these things that it's proposing within this plan? And I think that is an issue that we need to be very wary of. Here comes Phil. Good to see him again. Can I just say, I think the point that was raised by Denise about the 16 to 18 education is a case in point, that it talks here about how we are going to make 16 to 18 education more available to people, but at the very moment that we're doing a report that's saying that, actually the options are being closed to some of our children in Devon. So I think it's a good report. I support it, but we need to be wary that it's got to be realistic as well, and we'll be able to do everything there. Donna.
I think it's a point well made, Leader, but I think we have to be honest in this room today that we have not been doing a good enough job for our NEET children and young people in Devon. We've had that feedback through Ofsted visits, and it continues to be a priority area for improvement. So there is much better practice elsewhere, and we have to be open about that today, that this is a big area for improvement. So I certainly support the ambition, but I hear the check and challenge about the reality of delivery. But this is a key task for all partners everywhere. And as we focus more on a partnership agenda, we've got to provide the clarity of expectations here, because simply it's not good enough. And many other places in England are doing far better. So I would suggest, in response to your comments, Leader, that underneath the strategy in some shape or form very quickly needs to come back a delivery plan with different phases in it, with clear milestones. But I think it would not be appropriate for us not to have the ambition and that actually is delivered elsewhere, because our young people deserve better.
No, I totally agree with that. I think that's right. Denise.
Thank you. I share Donna's faith that we need to be aspirational. I hear what you're saying. I think that we need to work genuinely with partners, and I think that's something we haven't done well enough. I've been banging on about this all week, but I met with the Vice Chancellor at Exeter University, for example, who sees their position in Devon as something that we all should be very proud of, as I am. They want to work with us in ensuring that they can assist in plans like this, which I think that we need to take them up on. We talk often about co-production, and I don't think that we do that genuinely enough. Hearing people's voices and working with them in the area that they are knowledgeable of is key to all of this. We can't do it ourselves, absolutely, but if we do it all together, I think we can make inroads into these things. Part 3.5, it says number 2, it says provide trauma-informed one-to-one support and relationship-based interventions, and your mentoring thing. Look, no, we can't provide one-to-one mentors for everybody, but can we not facilitate training in schools to get trauma-informed to be part of the life of the school? In which case, that is one adult in a child's life can make a significant difference. Well, if everybody in that school, from the head down to everybody, the cleaners and everybody, is trauma informed, it could be any member of staff that provides that mentor relationship. And so we won't know until we try, and we have to be aspirational. that's it. I think, but with our strategy for 16 to 18, if we're going to seriously develop that, we can help our partners, use our partners, and work with our partners to get all of these things in place, all the strands that we need to get this working. Thank you.
No, thank you, Denise, and thank you for your positivity about it. That you know, we need to be ambitious, absolutely, but I you know, we just need to be realistic too. That if you and what I'm interested in is this has got, you know, it says in it that we need, you know, this is the strategy. We've got a delivery plan to come with the KPIs, and that's going to be, you know, the proof really is when we start delivering on that. I mean, just on it, I mean, actually in Devon, our NEET percentage is actually quite good relative to the national standards. Where we do fall down is on our care leavers, and so rightly so that this is a lot of this is focused on the care leavers, and you know, absolutely that must be our focus on that. So you know, that's good that it highlights that. And I also, I mean, I suppose, you know, when you talk about others doing better than us, I mean, reading through the report, you'll see that Dorset do pretty well on all of these things. So we should aspire to be as good, if not better, than Dorset. And it'd be interesting to know what strategies they are using in order to produce the figures that they've got. I mean, there may be other factors involved that make it more difficult in Devon, but we should obviously aspire to do it. Right. Any more comments? Jackie?
I just wanted to say that I welcome that there is, you know, we're just focusing in very much still on what we're doing for our young people. I think it's very challenging because one thing, you know, always with local authorities is a sense of looking at figures that existed, you know, before. But actually, it's such a fast moving target now with young people. There's so many things happening in their lives and the changes that are coming through that I think it's actually really difficult. So I think it's brilliant that we're actually doing what we're doing. And, you know, I'll be absolutely supportive of what we can take forward for our young people.
Thank you, Jackie. Cheryl, and then I'll come to you, Zach.
I'm not sure if it's completely appropriate for this, but I was chatting with Kerry and Phil about the need for more agricultural training in Devon, particularly in North Devon and Torridge, because we're an agricultural heartland, but we don't actually have training available. And there was discussion around that, and there's no mention of that within this. And also we were talking about 16 to 18 strategy, so I'd like to see that type of thing included. And also heading back to the transport issues and the post-16 transport in particular. So before we heard about the stagecoach increases and axing the return fares, I'd already had correspondence with families who are concerned about the costs of post-16 travel, which impacts particularly on rural areas, and the current cost is nearly £1,000. So if you've got multiple children, that's significant costs on families, and just because you live in a rural area, so it's impacting on people who can access education and the affordability of it. So I'd like to see that included somewhere, but we have been talking about it, but I just wanted to make people aware.
Yeah, no, thank you, Cheryl. And I think what you do there is you highlight that it's multifaceted. You know, and sometimes it's beyond our control. I mean, Stagecoach putting up their fares is, you know, that's not us, but we must try and lobby them to make sure that they understand the connotations of that, particularly to these hard to reach individuals and children who we're trying to support so much. And thank you for championing them. You know, that's great.
And whether we can work together with like Bicton College and places like that to create centres across Devon to make it more accessible.
Good. Well, I've got Combined County Authority on Monday. We're talking about again about training and education. Phil's instrumental in that. So you've heard what Cheryl said about that, Phil. So it's something that we probably need to pick up there as well. So good. Dan.
Thank you, Leader. Under priority 4, the employment engagement, there's some really meaningful stuff, particularly at number 3 and number 4 around supported employment pathways and bridging offers, and also around employer delivered inspiration and workplace readiness. And these are fantastic notions. I suppose my question is, when you're looking at NEET and particularly at care leavers, of course, there's a very different pathway to get to that stage when you're in foster care, as opposed to the pathway that you'll find yourself in if you end up neat, but having lived in a non-foster care family, with birth parents or whoever. So I suppose my question is there some work around, because it strikes us other people, and it may very well be the answer is yes, Dan, of course, that's part of the foster care program, but I don't know whether it is, and if not, whether it can be.
No, what I say to that is, I mean, that's definitely part of this report, and that is in there. Each section talks about where our priorities are, and in particular highlights how we expect to support care leavers in particular, and other children in care. So I think that is there, and I would go back to the thing that in the end it's going to be about our delivery plan and where we do it. I mean, one of the KPIs I think that's suggested in here talks about our percentage. I think it's the percentage of care leavers that we can actually get into, and of course that will involve supporting foster carers and other carers who are looking after these children. So I'm hoping that will absolutely be an integral part of this report and the delivery plan as we see it. But thank you for highlighting that. I don't know, Phil, if you wanted to add anything on that, or.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that we do with the social workers and the PAs at the moment. We've been having a conversation about how we further do it with the families, because actually you're right. We've also been working on the other side with the employers around some training for them so that they're ready to take a young person, because that's the other part of it. But I think the leader's right. There is a serious piece of work which needs to be done about tying people down to getting that done in good time. We've talked about it a lot, but it's actually getting it done with parents that's been the challenge in the past. So absolutely.
Denise.
It's only just occurred to me, but really, do we have any way of registering employers that offer work placements? And I'm thinking specifically probably about our council facilities, district councils. I can relate it to myself. My son wanted to work in a local leisure centre. LED said no, they don't do work experience placements. To me, that just seems a bit insane, and we ought to be encouraging all our local employers. So do we have a database or something?
We do. So we set up about 6 to 12 months ago, on the last round of commissioner comments and some of the improvement work that we've done, a specific piece of work around employers, and there's 3 bits to it. There's the PACE programme we do with the college. So that's working with Exeter College and some of the other colleges. Positive About Care Experience, where we've got a database of employers that offer work experience apprenticeships, shared internships, various things. We've got an internal system where we capture other offers, and we get those through things like Section 106. So when we're doing transport activity or other commissioning activity, we actually have care provision as part of their training offer, and we capture those offers. And then finally, as the council ourselves, we've got our own offer, and we've got at the moment 10 to 12 apprentices internally and work experience placements. We're actually in the process via the People and Culture Directorate of setting up a virtual work experience environment actually in County Hall at some point to allow care experienced young people to come in. So it's one of those things that we're working quite hard on. Interestingly, one of the reasons I went out was because we've just had an offer from Teambridge Council to work with us around one of their apprenticeships, which is brilliant news. I've just sent it over to the team. So it's live, this stuff is, and we're working pretty hard on it.
Richard.
Just to add to what Phil, and perhaps you can fill in for me a little bit. There's also an offer from one of our partners in the NHS around that area as well. I'm not exactly sure how that's progressed, but if you could add to that.
Yeah, so the NHS has been talking to us for a while about the opportunity to have ring-fence placements around apprenticeships and work experience in-house. Different trusts have different arrangements, but they've brought them together. There's a programme called the Careers Hub. It's not our Careers Hub because we've got our own, but it's their Careers Hub inside the NHS, where they've identified care leavers as a protected characteristic, and the 2 teams are now talking to each other about, right, how do we make sure that we can prioritise the young people that we've got ready on our side with those opportunities that are coming through. The two teams are talking. We're working with the ICB guys and the various trust guys at the moment on the HR side to try and do that bit of joining up. And Nikki and the team over on our HR side are aware, and we're starting to have that conversation. It's a work of many years to get the NHS to that point, and I'm really grateful for the stuff that they've done over the last 6 months, because it's not easy to get through a whole array of bureaucracy around recruitment into the NHS, but we are getting there, a bit like we did with district councils around some of the care leaver measures. It's work in progress, but it's a really positive development, and as you heard yesterday, they are quite keen, which is a big change for us. So
thank you, Phil. So Donna, you've heard about, you just wanted to add something.
Yeah, I think members, we have to be aware that we are, under commission for our children's services in terms of that absolute requirement to improve. We also have heard from all the members, all members attended the session where, across the whole council, everybody agreed that, children's were a priority. We also heard yesterday in the brief to our staff from our cabinet leads and our also strategic cabinet lead for performance about that commitment to improving children's. Our leader and our cabinet leads and some members sit on the partnership board for improvement, but our public need to see that line of sight, that commitment that you've got, our commissioner, the DFE, and I would say that in terms of need for care leavers, this is something we need to shift at pace. You've heard from Councillor Thomas, the statistics here today are not acceptable. So I do thank you for pulling that out. And I would suggest that with that whole commitment from council on this matter and a whole council approach, that there should be some form of additional recommendation that so that we are publicly being transparent about what we're doing to improve children's services. And the care leavers area is certainly an area that was rated as inadequate and an area for significant improvement. So I think it would be important to bring something back in October so that everyone's got line of sight on the accountability around about this. So maybe ask that there's some possible suggesting of wording for you to consider, members, but I'm hearing your commitment. We recognise where we are. I think it's really important for the young people publicly as well, because they don't sit on the staff briefings or whatever. So it's important that public hear that you're taking responsibility for these key issues. I would suggest.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take that. Can I just ask, Kerry, Phil, I mean, are we likely, how soon are we expected to have a delivery plan that backs up the strategy?
yeah, it's actually sitting in draft on my system. We've been working on.
So that's great.
Yeah.
So from that, so would that and that delivery plan will come back to cabinet?
Absolutely. I wanted to add as well, it is a partnership approach, so it's not just the county council. So we will also be asking other partners to endorse the Brighter Futures. They've contributed to it. They have co-designed it with us. And the proposal that you've seen in there is that we bring them together in a steering group, whether we need to make that more formal in terms of governance, but it is our best attempt at holding others to account for discharging their duties as well.
Yeah, no, I'm very taken with this report, how working with partners is absolutely central to delivering what we want to deliver. So, I get that. And then also with the delivery plan, we will have the KPIs. And I think as Donna has said, that our care leavers, we need to have a laser focus on making sure that, we do the percentage of care leavers who are NEETs is unacceptable. And we need to bring that down, and we need to bring that down at pace. So I would hope that would be right up there in the KPIs. But so is October, would that be a good time? Do we need to have a recommendation for that, or will that?
I think in terms of being under commission for our children's services, it's absolutely imperative that we set out a specific recommendation. As you've just said, there's an element here of outcomes for children and young people. It's unacceptable. So I think to have that separated out and recognising how much support from our partners in this space, it would certainly, I think, help to have it separated out. I would suggest.
Okay, I don't know if we've got to set up what's Denise.
can I just add to that, if we're going public and asking for help, whether we put a further recommendation out to ask businesses to come step forward and be supportive? Do we do any work with the Care Leaver Covenant? Is that something that we could perhaps encourage people to sign up to, and we can feature on our website?
We are, and we have.
Going to just add, I mean, one of the KPIs that we've got within the sort of draft KPIs is employer engagement, growing the number and diversity of employers, offering roles to young people at risk of need. So I think that sort of sorry.
Just
Yeah.
need to shout about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But if that's down as a KPI and it's not going up, then we need to do something. We need to shout louder. Absolutely, Denise. I'll take that on. So do we have Maria's putting together some words about adding that on? So it's really, I mean, the extra recommendation will be that we need to move at pace. We are going to need support of our partners, that they're on board as well, and that we hope to have a delivery plan by October, which, I mean, with that, I mean, would that be the stage that we ask our partners to sign up to it, or do we try and get them to sign up to it before that comes back to Cabinet?
So we're already in discussions with a few of them about actually taking it through their internal processes. Sorry. The actual delivery plan October will be fine, and we can ask the remaining ones to sign up. Interestingly, the university is one of those partners we're talking to already, so the team's been involved in putting this together. I need to make sure that the Vice Chancellor is aware of that, so we've got some comm stuff to do there on our own side. But yes, we can do that, absolutely.
Okay, that's great. No, thank you for that.
Again, I think we have to be transparent with the fact that as our own organisation, we need to scale this up. So, you know, our directors have previously worked in this area in terms of supporting care leavers into the organisation, and progress has been made. But we have had a call of support to the whole extended leaders across the council to step up into this space, because we have to be honest that internally it's not good enough. It needs to scale up. There needs to be a greater commitment to supporting our care leavers into employment opportunities. And also we need to celebrate more some of the fantastic care leavers that are now embedded within the organisation and hear their voice. So I don't want to just say it's about partnership, because we need to do better too.
Yeah, Maria.
I've had a first attempt, so you will have a new recommendation C, and this would be to recognise the ambition for our care leavers and bring back a report and delivery plan to October's Cabinet. I can make it sound a little bit better, but I think it's bringing back a progress report and the delivery plan by October Cabinet.
Yeah, I mean, change the words a bit around that, but the sentiment is there. Are we all happy with that, members? So if I move those recommendations, sorry, Andrew. How could I forget you?
You need to make more noise, don't I? Anyway, just as I don't want to say loads, but it's just my area beforehand. I mean, as Chief Exec has said, and Kerry and others, this is really, really important. We certainly made a big start over the last few years. I had meetings in North Devon, I had meetings in Exeter. We met with the colleges, we invited employers in. So we've done a lot of work already, but obviously there's more to do. And it's exactly as said, we've got to get our partners on board. I think you're going to find out the partners talk to you for the first few weeks, and then they go quiet. It's really, really hard. But I've got to pay tribute to the Chief Exec, who's worked unstintingly over the last few years trying to get these partners on board, kicking and screaming. Because the problem is, as you'll find out, with SEND and with this, although it's a partnership approach, actually the buck all stops with us, because we're seen as the accountable body. We've got the one with our heads above the parapet. You see them protesting here. You don't see them protesting outside the hospitals, the NHS. So it is really important. I'm being told by our Director of Education, people who go on to carry out crimes and the like, and antisocial behaviour forward, he says almost all of them are from neat backgrounds. That's saying the devil makes work for idle hands. You know, these people are outside the system. Can to keep them in the system. A lot of work's been done already, but I think this is really important. I think it's a really good start. I did start it, but obviously more to do. Thank you.
No, thank you, Andrew, and thank you for that warning. I mean, I think we understand that. So we must work doubly hard to bring our partners on board to deliver what you've started.
And keep them on board. That's the trouble.
Okay.
As you'll hear, that we all know they come along and then they gradually drift away.
Okay.
I speak.
Right. Well, perhaps you'd like a job as enforcer along those lines, Andrew. Anyway, no, thank you for that, Andrew. And again, you know, we are building on the work that you did before, and you're rightly to highlight the work that the Chief Exec Don has done. You know, absolutely. Yeah, obviously, indeed. Okay, right. So I'm going to move those 3 recommendations. Do I have a seconder for that? Denise, thank you. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Right, agenda item 14, development of gap homes in partnership with Bernardo's. Richard, over to you.
Thanks very much. I'm really pleased that this opportunity is in front of us today. The recommendation that we're being asked to do is to lease 2 pieces of land, one in Exeter and one in Barnstaple, the construction of 2 gap homes to provide supported accommodation, children aged 16 plus. I'm interested to see how that fits in with the neat piece before. Having the stability of having suitable accommodation is part of that puzzle, so I wanted to make that reference across the pieces. The scheme here would be to create these 2 supported accommodations, and this fits with the pressing need as we have young people who are not in suitable accommodation at the moment, and this will help provide with that sufficiency. It meets with our strategic priorities for developing an innovative solutions to this. It comes with no capital cost from us, and we're very lucky to be working with Bernardo's, who have received a large donation, which we are being offered the money to build those, and we're putting up the land to make this scheme work. So it's a low cost to us with lots of benefits going forward. And just to put that piece in there about how important it is, it's key that our young people and care leavers have got that stability, and then all of those other parts of the puzzle start to fall into place, especially around our care leavers who are neat. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Richard. I think that ties in nicely to the report we've just had, you know, where that was one of the structural issues that we struggle with, and this is helping to mitigate that. So that's, you know, that's good news. Members, anyone else wishing to say anything? I've got Julian. Daniel, sorry, Daniel. Yeah, Daniel. Anything you wish to add?
No, as Councillor Jeffries has outlined, we've got a proposal which fits in with our wider programme of work, our recommissioning of our supported accommodation over the next year, and our work with district councils to provide provision when they're ready to move on from supported accommodation. But one of the key points is provided the right and targeted supported accommodation with a provider who can offer intense support, particularly where we want to support people back into education and employment. Bernardo's have already developed a similar programme of homes in some other areas of the country. This would offer 2 locations which were carefully chosen in both Exeter and Barnstaple, which offer opportunities for nearby education and employment. And at each of those locations, there'd be 4 small home units for 4 young people, so 8 in total, plus provision for staff to be on site to support those 4 young people. And we would focus that on 16 plus young people and giving them the right support so they can then move on into adulthood and independence. And happy to take any questions.
No, thank you, Daniel. I mean, it's Richard.
Having heard Daniel's piece, I realised I just pushed a bit about the fact that if this model works, and there'll be some work between DCC and Bernardo's in how it fits with the strategy for making sure we're looking after our care leavers in the appropriate way. We're looking after the right people in the right place. And I think it's exciting that we'll have a model which we're running through, which could be replicated with other partners as well when opportunities arise. Thank you.
No, thank you, Rich. Absolutely. And Donna, that sort of leads into.
I would just like to report back on the work that's been taking place with our district colleagues, our housing officers, our social care staff, and senior leaders across Devon in recent months. And as you know, flowed from the partnership board and improvement linked to unsuitable accommodation, an absolute imperative to address this matter. During those conversations, firstly, I just want to commend the work of Sophie Copiel-Dick, who has been supported by West Devon and South Hams District Council to step out of role and focus on this area to give that housing lens into the complexity across Devon. The work she's doing is fantastic. And one of the key discussions that day was the number of evictions. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to hear that so many people worked hard to get young people into accommodation, and the numbers of evictions were astonishingly high. During those discussions, we've had further discussions with our Director of Public Health. What we identified is that our housing officers and our social care teams and partners such as Bernardo's are all working very well together, but there is a huge gap in the middle, and that is the health support, the emotional support, the support for trauma and addiction, in summary, the kind of voluntary sector work and the health piece. There is a gap there. So I just wanted to point out today that I think that for all that we're doing this, all those colleagues across local government have identified this gap. And I think that we need to, I don't know if the Director of Public Health wants to comment, because you've heard me talk about this a lot, Steve, but we have talked about the bit of how do we start plugging that gap as soon as possible, because for all these fantastic opportunities, if we do not provide those vulnerable young people with key support with their health at the right time, in the right way in a locality, and we don't have it across Devon. We have fantastic support services, for example, in parts of Exeter and drop-in, and young people can go in there and get support, but we don't have that in other parts of Devon. So I just think it's important to note that there is something here that needs to evolve alongside this. So I don't know, Steve, you want to comment on how we might take that forward, but I think it's important, because what we don't want to do is to come back and say we've put all this investment in, we're doing this work, and then evictions continue to increase, because it's amazing work and we're increasing capacity with our districts every day in this space, and I think it should be noted. But when people are coming together, it's not really going to work for our young people unless we put this other piece of intervention in.
Thank you, Donna. I mean, just to amplify a couple of bits, really, you're absolutely right. You know, how we keep the young people in their home and supported. And I think ultimately it relies on partnership work and the kind of multidisciplinary team approach, where you have multiple teams, whether it's around supporting around emotional health and well-being, around substance or addiction services as well, housing support. They all need to be working together to keep young people in their homes safe as possible. And in terms of how we do that, I think there are some systems in place already, but we need to work harder and together to support, I say, people to remain safe in their home for as long as possible. So happy to contribute to that and make sure we do all we can.
Thank you for that, Stephen, and thanks, Donna. Jackie, and then Simon, and then I'll come to you, Dan. Yeah.
Thank you. I think this is a fantastic thing that, you know, to be working with this well-established charity like Bernardo's and the work that they do, and their real understanding of what it's like for people who are sort of like having problems. I mean, Bernardo's have really stretched its arms very wide over the decades to recognise the support that is needed to individuals. But this is a particularly critical age group, 16 to 25. It's a really difficult time for young. I mean, I've been a foster mum. You know, you see youngsters coming out of care at 16, And as much as they're desperate to kind of feel their feet, they're terribly vulnerable. And so I think this system of having sort of small units, but where they've actually other youngsters who've been in a similar situation, so they're not the odd one out like they are often in regular families. Suddenly they've got their own family of similar experienced others with them, and the fact that there's going to have a trusted adult involved in this. I think that is a critical way forward for them, and giving them a home that they know they can just feel settled in, I think will be a big thing for many young people. And I think it's not very big numbers at the moment, and we have a lot of numbers that need it, but it's, you know, we have to go with what we can. And I know this looks like a lot of money as well, but it's actually going to be well invested, and I think this is fantastic, and I think we're really lucky to have it in Devon. So I really welcome it, and congratulate all those involved. And yeah, I think it's going to, it's going to be a learning process going forward. There always is, because as I said earlier, there's a lot of, there's a lot of challenges for young people these days. But this, where it's going to be really supported, hopefully will catch them at that critical time. Just, a few years later, they'll be coming out and saying that was great, and being maybe available to others who are coming up behind them as well.
No, thank you, Jackie. Simon, do you want?
Thank you, Leader, and Jackie, thank you for encapsulating our thought processes in a paragraph, and I couldn't agree with you more. I might be stretching the point slightly at this point. But could I say our discussions, or could I ask rather, our discussions going on in the background about the type of properties to be constructed, i.e. materials, because I'm aware speed is of the essence sometimes in these, and I would advocate personally, as we did at MDDC in the past, that maybe the MMC, modern modular construction builds, might be more applicable in this case, especially when you consider their life expectancy 50 years plus, which conforms with building control, and also the energy efficiency. So you are helping your young adult, let's be frank, on all sorts of ways. Thank you.
Daniel, do you know any details about that?
So the initial conversations with Bernardo's have included discussing on construction methods. They have two preferred providers, which they're keen to use because they've developed a model elsewhere that both takes into account carbon footprint of the build, but also timescales. And we haven't agreed a final design because that would be part of the next stage of the process, to try and agree exactly what that would look like and how it would meet the needs of our young people. And we would do that before we signed the final contract. But that has been part of the initial discussion and learning from the gap provisioning homes they've already constructed elsewhere in the country.
Thank you very much. It's deflated the next two questions that I'm going to ask that I wasn't going to, about the case studies and also the whereabouts they were at that point. Thank you.
Good. Jackie, do you want to?
Sorry to come back. Yeah, just to pick up on that point, which is a really important point about the build. Any of us that were at the Local Government Association conference a couple of weeks ago may have come across the Prisoners Building Houses programme. I actually went to the workshop on it, and it was really interesting. They can deliver in 17 weeks from planning permission, but it was really interesting because it's actually ticking so many boxes, that, as has been discussed by Simon here. But it's also the fact that you're actually, you're working in a slightly different way. So it's actually plus again, and actually they're very reasonable, their costs. So I think that's something worth exploring. I can provide the link for that because I picked up the documentation.
Oh, thank you for that, Jackie. Dan, did you want?
No, I was only going to commend the scheme leader and say what a new story it was. And I was going to say that I didn't think there was much more to be said, but actually my cabinet colleagues have proved me wrong. So there we go.
All right. So, Richard.
Thank you. And I'd like to move in Dan's direction as well. I just wanted to highlight at this point, because we were talking about the different bits of the puzzle of accommodation for care leavers and moving on from that. And the moving on part, I think I'd just like to at this point highlight that, I mean, the name of these gap homes, I'm not sure of that from Bernardo's, but it does fill a gap. And we need to be looking now at what happens when those care have moved on this setting to the next one, and about making that process easier, because that will help with the provision we have for that, which is part of that support is becoming tenancy ready, so they are ready to move on to tenancies. We need to be getting rid of that bottleneck so that we got that provision ready for the next cohort through. We don't end up with a bottleneck there, so we need to work with partners to make sure there are tenancies available next part of the journey.
Yeah, no, good point. And, you know, I mean, housing, as we know, is a massive issue in Devon, and that's another part of that. And we've got to get it right. Yeah. Members, any more officers? No. Andrew.
Well, I won't say very much. Only I'm delighted everything thinks it's a fantastic idea, because obviously it started when I was still cabinet member. What more can I say, really? No, it is a great idea. We've been working on this for some time, and it fills a gap. I think what it shows is that Devon has to look at delivering these services in different ways, and this is one of them. And as you quite rightly say, accommodation is a key issue. For too long, we've been at the perils of private market. So yeah, great idea. I'm glad you all welcome it. I suspect we'll need more in time.
Indeed, absolutely. Let's hope the pilot works, and then we can crack on.
Good organisation for the night.
Yeah,
So thank
you. Paul.
Yeah, just very quickly, Chair, just to offer an open invitation to Andrew. We've got a reminiscence cafe in Collerton, and do come along if you want anytime.
Okay.
You know, this there's a lot of chat about being ambitious for our children and young people and plans around about it, but that cabinet leads talked about that move on, and I don't think we can underestimate enough how important paragraph 2.3 is. We may not be seen as the organisation where we have a strategic priority in homelessness, but our relationship with our district colleagues and in terms of local government reorganisation, we need to see the future piece that homelessness is everybody's business. It's not a district responsibility. We're all in a chain of events here. So I would just ask that this creates an opportunity when we look at something like this, perhaps for Cabinet to reflect on moving forward into the future, how we actually take a much more strategic approach to homelessness with our districts. You know, I've raised the issue of eviction today, and it's only by working with our districts over the last few years that we've really got an understanding of that and our part to play in that. So I just wanted to emphasise that piece, that it's maybe something to be considered in some way forward about where our joint responsibilities come in terms of governance and performance. And I know we have constructs such as the Team Devon Committee and so on, and maybe it lies there, but I do think it's an important part of what we're discussing today.
No, thank you, Donna. Absolutely. And you know, it's good that we're building up I mean, I know we've got LGR coming along tracks, but it's good that we're building up a proper working relationship with the districts, who are absolutely crucial. You know, we must work together to deliver for our young people. Right. So, Richard, are you happy to propose the recommendations?
Very happy to propose recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder for that? James, yeah, thank you. All those in favour? That's great. Thank you very much. Agenda item 15, which is the notice of motion from Jackie, it was, and that is the 20 is plenty.
Chairman, can I ask a point of clarity on this?
Yeah, sure.
Whose portfolio does this come under?
I think it's probably Dan.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not Dan, it's not Councillor Hodgson.
No, it's Dan, because Jackie is more to do with public transport and cycling and that side of it. Dan deals with the infrastructure. So
I just got to make a comment. Is this how you're going to do policy, though, by putting through motions from your cabinet?
Well, it's something that, yeah, I mean, I think in an ideal world, we, you know, particularly for cabinet members, we would hope to bring policy forward, not through a motion, but this, you know, this was something that was very top of the agenda, and particularly of Jackie and myself as well, actually. So, you know, what this has done is it's been the catalyst which has created this policy. But I think as a rule of thumb, no, it's not how we would expect it to come through from cabinet members. Indeed, yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, Andrew. But I think what I would say is that for other members who aren't members of cabinet, then absolutely, there's there's no reason why that shouldn't happen, and I'm sure there will be other motions coming forward which will do that. What I would say to members as well is that if you've got a policy that you want to bring through, I think it's well worth speaking to the cabinet member and seeing if we can bring that through in a more structured way. But I take on board what you're saying. Thank you.
Can I just give
Jackie.
you information, just a quick information on that? I actually tabled this before I knew I was going to be a cabinet member. So I was just an ordinary member at that point. But it was, yeah. Well, it has been.
I mean, rather than get into the technicalities,
just thought I'd explain. That's why it was tabled at the time.
No, thank you, Jackie, and I think that's a fair point. Anyway, what? No. Well, I mean, hopefully not, but you never know. Right. So, Dan, are you going to introduce it, or would I?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the point. Look, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'm very happy to talk around what Councillor Hodgson has requested. I mean, so in many ways, what she's done inadvertently. And taking the point that Councillor Ledbetter makes about informing policy is that Councillor Hodgson is effectively stalking a stalking horse towards a policy change that we would like to see. And that is, again, and it comes back to the conversation we had earlier on in this agenda around, your desired commitment, leader, of the parish protocol. And the parish protocol is a very simple concept, and it's one that actually we already employ to a certain extent, but it will fit around 20-mile-an-hour speed ambitions as well. Any parish in Devon that wants to expedite a duty that would ordinarily fall upon the county to be responsible, but wants to expedite that process, is able to enter into dialogue to do exactly that. But there are some key principles around that. One is that the parish, obviously has a clear support from its council and its public. Two, that it can finance any such scheme. And three, that whatever the parish is wanting to work with county, it sits within current county policy. So Councillor Hodgson's motion around communities that wish to realise a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, the response from county, as has been proved to be the case in Ermington, a village within my own division, is that talk to your divisional member, demonstrate the community support, demonstrate the community ability to fund, work with the officer team, and it can happen. And in the case of Ugborough, it has happened. There are significant challenges to manage around expectation, not least the fact that some communities might have aspirations that do not fit with current existing policy. And we have to get around the fact and be very honest about the fact that sometimes, cabinet colleagues, the computer will say no. But we have to understand that there is a reason why the computer says no. And my challenge to the director and her team has been very clear, which she's taken on board, which is that this is not a computer says no. This is a computer says you can't do that, and this is the reason why. That's what councillors need to receive. So where that slightly shaggy dog story fits in with this motion is my response to the motion that should communities be able to bring 20-mile-an-hour speed ambitions to the county council? The answer from me is very clearly yes, they should be able to, notwithstanding the fact that we already put in the capital budget a sum of money to prioritise those communities where they meet the criteria that we see means that there is a genuine need for it to be done quickly. That those communities, county have last year paid for 6, the previous year paid for 4, this year I think 6 are in the programme, aren't they? So they are happening anyway. This is for other communities that feel there is a more pressing need, that they cannot wait to go through the county tranche on the criteria list. So my answer to Councillor Hodgson on this, and my answer to any member, is there is absolutely the scope to speed up, to expedite. That is not to say that the county is somehow abrogating its duty. The county acknowledges that it has a duty. But if a community chooses to speed up that process, then subject to capacity and subject to policy, both of which can easily be, Capacity can be got around through the fact that the design process is one that we send out externally. So, you know, and I would encourage that to carry on. When a scheme needs to be designed, we use a third-party design agency. That will allow for the capacity. What it won't take away from is the fact that we still need to be all over the safety audits from the legal side of things, and that's really key. But as long as those things work, if I mean, I'd go so far as to say this isn't just about 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. If a community really feels that it has a pressing need to have its lining redone quicker than the county can allow on its current timetable, then that you've said yourself that you'd like communities to be able to ask to do that. I have no problem with that either. You know, there will be capacity questions around lining because obviously we have our own lining considerations and our own lining schedules, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. There is a will, there is a defined will within the Highways Department to work with communities. We've seen that already through Ugborough. The motion that Councillor Hodgson brings really crystallises that around speed, but actually it applies across the entire suite of assets, really. And in that regard, I would suggest Councillor Hodgson, I would hope she feels too, is knocking at an open door.
No, thank you, Dan. That was very comprehensive and very encouraging as well. I mean, I think that's where we want to move into that. Meg, did you want to say anything at this stage? Or I see you've got two colleagues at the back there. Are they? They're from the next item. Sorry. I just didn't want to miss you out. Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Meg.
I think in kind of talking this through with both councillors Thomas and Hodgson, what's become really clear is that although we have already got something in place, it's not good enough, and that we need to be more provide a bit more information, a bit more guidance on the process. So that was a clear outcome, I think, from our discussions about this particular issue. So I think what Councillor Thomas has just said is perfectly correct. I just think what definitely has come out of that is the need for more information, a bit more help and advice, and a bit more promotion actually of this. And clearly, I think as you've just seen in the corporate plan, we've got series of webinars still with Devon Association of Local Councils. So there's ways of promoting this into the communities who actually want to do this.
Thank you, Meg. Paul.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Jackie, also for clarifying for Andrew's benefit there. I'd forgotten this. We did bring this to council, didn't we, on the 22nd of May, and it was council that referred it here. But Andrew's got a very good point. That wouldn't be the normal kind of modus operandi on this. So, you know, I was sitting on a number of triple hatters, probably in the room I was sitting in Colton Parish Council 2 weeks ago, and everybody wants one of these. And I said, well, this might come forward because probably the council wouldn't be able to afford it. It's one of those things where you have to be cautious about the law of unintended consequences. Of course, you know, you look at the low traffic network zones and what happened with some of those. You need to be careful who's running the schemes in the towns, who's pushing them forward. You know, we all applaud the people in day-glow jackets who are there with their speed cameras taking terrible abuse on a Saturday morning from passing motorists. But, you know, they mean well. The parishes have really lost out in the last few months because, sadly, of the almost de-designation of the importance of neighbourhood plans. So a lot of parish councils have done years and years of work, and they come along to various planning authorities and they're told, well, sorry, the government has announced yet again you've got even less effect that you can have on emerging local plans, or indeed on live planning applications. So I really welcome this. I think it's a great piece of work from Jackie here, and I'm sure she won't need anybody to propose it for her, but if she needs a seconder, I'd be happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Jackie. I mean, Jackie, can I just, before I do that, I mean, obviously we've got in front of us, and I would hope that the public see the recommendations. These are the recommendations. So that's 5 recommendations we've got there, and so everyone can see those, the public included. Jackie, anyway, over to you. Your comments.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the words of support so far. And also thank you to the team for actually the support that's been going on behind the scenes to do the work on this and come up with the recommendations in the briefing document. There's some comments I'd like to make, if I may, just to kind of in some ways maybe show where this is coming from. And it's not coming from maybe where we've normally come from for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. So what I wanted to say was I'm really pleased that we're looking at wider opportunities to bring speeds down to a safer level in the hearts of places where our communities live, work and need to thrive. As many of us will be aware, over 150 communities in Devon have signed up to the 20's Plenty campaign for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in the local roads where people live, work, play and go to school. And many have put up the 20's Plenty signs, but they have no legal basis and have been somewhat confusing and potentially give pedestrians in those places a false sense of safety. This motion is based on their desire for safer public spaces, recognising that speeding vehicles are a deterrent to people walking and accessing public transport and cycling, in particular those who are very young or old, vulnerable and disabled. We can affect behaviour change by reducing the legal speed limit of passing traffic. Our current policy is based on safety, whereby we prioritise our responses and finance to investing in 20-mile-an-hour speed limits to areas that have had a significant accident rates, and of course that is important and remains so. But it's more that can be achieved with lower speed limits in more places. Initiating a new policy for 20's Plenty is different. It's a proactive initiative to open the door to local towns and parish councils and communities across Devon who want to improve the quality of life in their local areas by reducing traffic speeds to a safer level so that all their residents can feel safer and be more inclined to walk or cycle rather than drive to local destinations, walk their children to school, cross the road to catch a bus, and for the many vulnerable people who are currently often very restricted in their access to safe walking and access to public transport, and gives them the opportunity to enjoy a fuller life and address the challenging climate change that is also upon us. Traffic slowing down as it passes through residential areas and village centres is also less likely to have to start a lot, and therefore this would also improve air quality, a major issue that is contributing to the rise in childhood asthma, an illness that can lead to a lifetime of poor health and of course reduce our carbon footprint and move us towards our net zero carbon targets. In June 2019, Devon County Council published its findings from an 18-month task and finish group investigation with the CIRS committee into 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. And these were key recommendations. One, taking a different approach to our policy of setting traffic speeds and embedding the safe systems approach. And two, supporting the local areas to determine their environment. And I would recommend anybody reads that report, because while it's 6 years old at this stage, it was hit by COVID as soon as it came out. And I think, there was a lot of really good investigation in that 18 months. I would gave great credit to our scrutiny officers at the time on that. So I circulated it with my motion at May in full council. So Devon County Council will not be the first local authority to implement 20's Plenty principles as a new 20-mile-an-hour policy to provide safer vehicular speeds where people live, work and play and go to school. Local authorities, Cambridge, Oxfordshire, Somerset have all initiated this and are proactively and comfortably rolling it out with their local town and parish councils, who've responded to their change in policy to support this formally. Last year's data from the Wales Blanket 20-mile-an-hour initiative has demonstrated a 28% decrease in serious and fatal accidents. And that's really important, and that in itself can save money. So looking at the recommendations that are on the screen now and the briefing document that was provided with this, with the agenda, I'm concerned that the recommendations and factual document are, as currently prepared for this agenda, do not do justice or would serve the purposes of a proactive approach to 20's Plenty initiative to engage the many towns and parish councils that would like to be able to implement this in their jurisdictions. I'm going to propose some changes to recommendations and ask that we remove the constraints as indicated in the briefing document that suggests that 20-mile-an-hour speeds should not be applied on strategic roads. This needs to not be applied as a factual requirement, because apart from the fact some A roads already have 20-mile speed limits, this could cut through many of the possible benefits and enthusiasm for 20-mile-an-hour areas. Of course, all of this will be looked at through the lens of safety, and also in terms of what costings are considered. I don't think we need to worry about a huge rush in the first instance. I won't raise it today, but I have already raised it with the highways team, that we can actually ask parish and town councils to make sure they have A, the support of their communities, which is a survey which takes time, and B, that they have also prepared their precepts to be able to provide funding. That also will take time. So that will slow down the response in terms of people seriously coming forward to go, okay, we're going to do this. But we need to be proactive in getting people encouraged to start feeling they can do it. So looking at the suggested recommendations, I've proposed amendments to parts B, C and D. So you have A before you. My proposal for proposal B is that the authority will develop a new 20-mile-an-hour speed limit policy to open up a more proactive approach and work with any community that wishes to see a new 20-mile-an-hour speed limit introduced, where it will be beneficial to road safety and sustainable transport, and where communities wish to self-fund their own speed limits. So it's not a huge difference to that, but it's actually just making it more proactive. Part C, my proposed amendment is that the community self-delivery guide for works on the highway is amended to provide more advice to communities on the cost process for the new 20-mile-an-hour speed policy and step-by-step guidance for implementing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. In other words, it will actually be slightly separate to just the actual document that people have to wade through, which can be a bit of a deterrent and not find things. And for D, I recommend that we have the website page on working with communities updated to provide a separate access to the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit policy and guidance contained in the revised community self-delivery guide for works on the highway, and that a communication is sent around to all town and parish councils advising of the changes and inviting town and parish councils to consider if this may be of interest to their communities. And E as is. So those are my three modifications. And just to say that since my motion was tabled in May, I've received a lot of very positive responses and letters of support for us to implement this. I mean, for me, the writing's on the wall and we need to do this. And I'm looking forward to your support today.
No, thank you, Jackie. Can I just ask Meg and Dan? I mean, you've heard those. I don't know if you picked up on those amendments.
Jackie, can you email them to Julia so we can see them on the screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Or Louise, whoever's doing it. Sorry.
You know, I mean, from what I was seeing, they were just maybe changing the emphasis a bit, but not the substance of it.
Yeah.
I mean, Leila, I want to be really clear to Councillor Hodgson in public and to everybody that I have reservations around blanket policies on A roads, and the reason I do is because if you take a road like the A379, which traverses the entire county in my division, it goes through villages where I would argue it is not suitably reduced from 30 to 20, but in your division it goes through villages where it is through the layout of the road. So you know, even one specific road, you know, it's difficult to say that one size fits all, because it doesn't. The whole point about, you know, the notion of our policy is that what I don't want to do is I don't want to encourage residents to ask for an A road to be reduced to 20 when the road safety team will be quite honest, and they will say that all that you will doing here is you're causing an enforcement issue. Actually, what you're doing is you're taking a road at which everyone's driving at 28, 29, 30 miles an hour, and then you're reducing it to 20 and you're creating an enforcement issue where previously there wasn't an enforcement issue. That's my only worry. Complete support on communities that want to reduce to 20-mile-an-hour zones. Complete support on that, where there is widespread evidence support that Councillor Hodgson's already referred to, and I would be in total support of that. But I would be worried about anything that gives a blanket yes, you know, because it isn't a blanket yes. No, that's fine, as long as it wouldn't be. That's
okay. So anyway, are those, so Jackie?
I've emailed them over to Julia. I don't know if they've come through.
My question, Leader, if I may, on B is the authority will develop a new 20-mile-an-hour speed limit policy. I'm not sure what there would be, what policy there would be. I mean,
yeah, I mean, are we talking about a new 20-mile-an-hour policy, or are we just saying that we want to be more proactive in our approach?
I think we're looking for, I would like to see a separate policy because I think it would be distinctively different then from something that's just based on mainly on safety, which I absolutely agree. And I think there has to have safety, of course, in it. But I think it's about sort of, we don't actually have to have the problems before we actually say we want to.
Jackie, I would be nervous about putting in a new policy when we don't even know what that new policy might be. I mean, I think that we can say that we need to develop a more proactive approach to in supporting and encouraging communities that want their 20 mile an hour. But I don't necessarily think that we need, you know, I'm a bit wary of saying a new policy and then because, yeah, I mean, that's my feeling on that bit. Denise. Right, and then Denise, then I'll come to you, Meg. If I may.
It was only briefly, it came up at East Devon Hattock yesterday about Newton Poppleford, which is a village on a main road, and it's dangerous and somebody died on the crossing there. And so we were talking, I brought up about when you go to France, you drive through a town or a village in France and you know you're in a town or a village. And for me, it's a guide to what you can do to make your town or village safer, in order to demarc where a 20 mile an hour recommended route is in your village. There are things like natural gateways which we could perhaps develop, but I do think it's a large piece that needs some thought to it, whereas the 20 is plenty campaign is not quite of that extreme nature, is it? So that's something down the line I'd like to see.
Yeah,
there's a lot we can do with making villages safe.
I think you're right, Denise. I mean, it's not just about the speed limit, is it? It's about the street furniture. It's about the gateways into villages and communities. That's as important as well. So, I mean, I think what Dan said in his beginning when he was talking about the sort of, you know, this sort of reset with the protocol between the relationship between highways and our communities is that those will come forward, and this is but a small part of that. But I don't think we should get too hung up on that it's got to be 20s plenty or nothing, because there will be other options as well. I mean, as Dan said, I mean, there are plenty of villages that I've got that you'd be mad to drive at 20 miles an hour, quite frankly, through them, you know, because that would be ridiculously fast. Meg, can I just come to you? Yeah.
I was going to try and help out the challenge around the policy. Recommendation E is really all about reviewing while learning to determine what we should be doing in the future. So in a way, I think recommendation E, although it doesn't explicitly say it, and we could put in to consider changing policy into that if that would help. But I think that's where the recommendation, if you are wanting to revise policy, would come from, because that's the whole point of reviewing the learning from what we've done to actually revise what we want to do in the future. So that was the purpose really of recommendation E. And just to clarify for the benefit of all cabinet members, whether we decide or not to put in a 20 is not just limited to fatalities or seriously injured or injured. There are other factors which are taken into account in the prioritisation, including community facilities, health provision, school location, air quality areas. So I just want to be really clear. People keep saying it's all about injuries. It isn't. It's about looking actually at what's happening in the community and what the community are trying to access. And I think that's just really important for members to understand.
Thank you, Meg. And I think that helps with E explaining how actually some of those bits about the new policy, Jackie, will be covered in that review down there. Because I go back thing. I'm a bit nervous about putting in the new policy. If we could just take the new policy bit out and just have, you know, that we have a more proactive approach, that communities' advice on the cost processes for a 20 mile an hour speed policy and step-by-step guidance for implementing a 20 rather than putting in about the new 20 mile an hour policy. Given that will be part of E, provide a separate access to the 20 minutes. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think D, I haven't got a problem with the amendments on D necessarily, unless Meg or Dan, you.
No, thank you, Leader. I was going to echo what you've said. Although, of course, in B, you will need, after the word approach, you will need and continue. But the authority will have a more proactive approach and continue to work. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with C. I'm happy with D. I'd take on board the director's very helpful suggestion that if Councillor Hodgson wants there to be policy considerations, they should absolutely go in E as a consequence of what we learn from this. I could not and will not support the changing of highway policy in a cabinet meeting any more than I would support the changing of any other cabinet member's portfolio in this meeting. There are, you know, if we need to change the policy, there are places to do it.
It's coming about it. So can I just say that on that? So if we take the new, I appreciate what you said, Jackie. If in E we say best endeavours will be taken for officers to review both of these programmes, successes and performance within the next several months, which could include a new 20 mile an hour. So I mean, it's a slightly fudge in the sense that it's
I'm willing to accept that. I think I understand where people are coming from.
Okay.
So, but it's just really to sort of point out. I mean, I hear what Meg was saying about, you know, the current policy, and I absolutely understand that. But I think this, you know, that at the moment we tend to kind of, if we're going to fund it, but this is like it is distinctly different because it is working with that sort of self-funded program.
Yeah.
So it's slightly separate because we shouldn't detract from where we do need to respond to where there are safety issues, whether or not a parish council is actually sort of kind of, you know,
no,
sort of
agreed.
like
Agreed.
needing to,
But I mean,
needs
that's
to kind of go forward.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
that's present policy on that. So actually, so which could include a new 20 mile an hour policy. So, and we'll take that out of those. So are we all happy with that? Sorry, Meg.
Sorry, I just was going to suggest we aren't so specific on that to say 20 mile an hour. And I wonder if it would read better to say which could include a new speed policy, just a slight nuance to give us a little bit more, because we might think about revising where we put 30s as well as 20s. So
Sure.
it's more about the general speed limit policy
no,
than specifically about 20.
That's good. Yeah. Are you happy with that, Jackie?
Yeah, okay. I just don't want to see it disappear because I think it's quite important to people to find that they can actually go for that, you know, when they're like, because the 20's plenty thing has been very specific and very well understood, and kind of letting that disappear out of, you know, sort of bits of information means that people will struggle to find it. And it's like, you know, we think our website's fantastic, of course we do, but actually if you're an unknown and you're trying to navigate, it can be very difficult.
I think the point Meg's making, it doesn't preclude the 20's plenty, but it actually includes a more, you know, that we can reduce a 40 to a 30, for example. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Can I just finish with a little bit of expectation management, which I think is really important. The motion is couched around 20's plenty, which is a campaign group, an agitating group. I don't know what phrase you want to use that isn't seen as being pejorative, but certainly a group that champions speed reductions to 20. I just need, you know, I need to let members be aware, if they're not already, that there is very often within communities a differing view from those who work in are part of the 20's plenty organisation, and indeed sometimes the local parish council. And the challenge that in terms of managing expectations here is that if you're a member of 20's plenty and you see you know, the press from this meeting being that the county council is supporting 20's plenty, I think that is dangerous, and my message would be that we need to be very careful how we advertise this, in the sense that what we are actually doing is we're giving communities the opportunity to consult with their residents, and if there is a genuine appetite to do so, to work with the county to get a 20 mile an hour, you know, it shouldn't be taken as read that just because there is an active 20's plenty group in a community, we will automatically be seeing speed changes to 20, because there has to be that public consultation process. I'm sure you do the same in your division as I do, that you only support requests from communities that have the support of the community at large, not one part of it. And I just think making that point in public is really important.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point. Jackie, final words.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I hear what Dan is saying, and of course that's, you know, that's absolutely correct. But I don't think that, you know, we don't want to sort of make it feel like because people have signed up to the 20's plenty policy that there's some membership of some organisation. All they've done is said they agree with those principles, and they're just showing that sort of you know, and having that sort of like thing that everybody's lots of communities and parish councils have said, yeah, we would like that. It doesn't mean to say that is a, you know, something something slightly sinister about it. It really
No,
is. I'm not a member of Plenty's Plenty, and I don't know if anybody else
No,
is.
we're
'Cause
not.
It's just an
It's not going to be a
organisation
banned organisation.
that have been very helpful in terms of gathering information, and I think supporting something that's a positive
Okay.
way forward.
Look, we've had a long debate on that. I think we've come to a a good compromise here. And I've very much support the 20s Plenty. I'd like to see it in the communities that in my place that want it. And I think that this is a good way forward where and it also it's a sort of it's the moment that we're starting that reset with our communities and our parish councils, and the county will be working with them, and Meg has made that quite clear, in order to try and achieve what they want to achieve with all the various caveats around safety, etc. But I think it's a good step forward. So Jackie, I don't know if you'd be prepared to propose this. I mean, if you don't want to, because it's slightly amended from what you said. I mean, I know Paul said that he'd propose it.
No, I'll propose it. That's okay.
All right, thank you, Jackie. And sorry, Andrew. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, I don't have a problem with this, because obviously anything we do to make our roads safer is a good idea. But I think 20-mile-an-hour speed limits are part of the arsenal you can use to slow traffic down. As we all know, police won't enforce them. So what you really need is engineering work to slow traffic down. There was a time, I think Meg will agree, that you used to have engineering works before you brought the 20 in. That's what made them difficult. And then the government took away that need to have engineering works, and they became much easier. So everybody wants them. But that's what you actually need. You need to do more than just put 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in. Though it does give a perception traffic should be going at a slower speed. I have one in Topsham. I had one put in some years ago. So yeah, it slows things down. But without engineering works, people still go 20 miles an hour. I think the only thing I would say is that I think here's another recollection. I seem to remember over the years you've asked for increased funding from the previous Conservative administration to put these in. So I would say that if people want them, I'm not sure that the cost should be passed on to our hard-pressed council taxpayers who are paying a lot of money already. I would call upon you to find some increased budget, put these in where people want them.
Oh, I hear that, but I think the point is that we would ask communities themselves to help fund that. So I mean, and because I think that's the fairest way. I agree with you that we shouldn't ask all taxpayers, but if you live in a community that wants it, then through your parish or town precept, you can certainly fund a particular project.
But at the end of the day, we are the highways authority, and people are paying us money to do that role. So basically passing on additional funding to people, but that's your
right. It's been proposed by Jackie. Do I have a seconder for that? Paul, all those in favour for the recommendations as they are on the screen, please show. Any abstentions? Those against? Thank you. Excellent. Right. Got there in the end. Thank you. And thank you, Jackie. And Andrew, that's not how we will normally do it, but that was, well, not with cabinet members anyway, hopefully, but never say never. Right. So agenda item 16, public health annual report. Is that?
I think that's me.
Yeah, Cheryl.
Thank you. So before I properly start introducing this report in relation to alcohol, I do just have to state that anyone who knows me will know I'm not teetotal by any means. The Hunkin family is well known for their traditional farmhouse scrumpy cider making and cider drinking, passed down over the generations, and Devon as a whole is proud of its traditional cider making, which is part of our heritage. I know many of us are likely to view alcohol consumption lightheartedly. It's not illegal and it's a very popular social norm. However, there is real seriousness within the report in relation to alcohol harm and high levels of alcohol consumed over an extended period. The statistics are alarming, with alcohol harm figures well above the national average in many cases. So, as Cabinet will be aware, the Director of Public Health is required to write an independent annual public health report on the state of the health of the local population. As a local authority, we have a statutory responsibility to publish the report. This year's report is entitled Turning the Tide, Tackling Alcohol Harm in Devon, Right now in Devon, lives are being cut short, families are being broken up, and people are struggling to hold down their jobs due to alcohol consumption. The report is a deep dive into alcohol consumption, looking back through history, examining our drinking habits of the past, the changing patterns of consumption, and the harm it can cause to individuals, families, and communities. It brings together the latest data, research, evidence, and local insight. The data does not make for a pleasant read. In Devon alone, premature death, which means dying before the age of 74 years, from alcoholic liver disease has increased by nearly 42% since 2001. And within the last 10 years, alcohol-related hospital admissions have grown by 46%. Admissions for alcoholic liver disease have increased by 70%. I think you will agree these statistics are hugely concerning. A few more statistics regarding alcohol consumption on a more general basis is that it causes 18% of suicides, 27% of traffic injuries, and 26% of mouth cancers. In Devon, the proportion of road traffic accident casualties involving a failed or refused breathalyzer test has increased by 16.5% since 2017, pointing to ongoing concerns around drink driving. It's important to recognise the harm it can cause to the wider family and communities across Devon. Increased alcohol consumption is associated with increases in domestic and sexual violence and abuse, antisocial behaviour, and serious violence. While nationally we're seeing a reduction in alcohol consumption in younger adults, 18 to 34 years, it still causes significant harm to young people. In Devon, our under 18s hospital admission rate for alcohol-specific conditions are nearly double the national average. The report also highlights an increase in alcohol use among 55s and over, with drinking patterns established during the COVID pandemic, contributing to a record 10,473 alcohol-specific deaths in England in 2023. It's estimated that the total societal cost of alcohol harm in England in 2021 to 22 was £27.4 billion, equivalent to 1.2% of GDP. The total cost in Devon showed alcohol costs of £316 million per year, which is £388 for each person living in Devon. This is over 10 times the size of the public health grant for Devon. Devon County Council receives a sum of just £39.29 per head to fund all of the public health services within Devon. Most of this cost of alcohol consumption and harm is due to crime and disorder, followed by costs to the NHS, the wider economy due to lost productivity and social care. The report provides a number of examples of effective actions which can be taken by partners to help minimise the harm caused by alcohol, and these are captured within the recommendations which Cabinet are asked to note, and I would ask that we support those too, please. Thank you. And I hand over to Steve. Got any questions?
Yeah, no, thank you, Cheryl. Quite some
Thank you,
start.
Cheryl. Very comprehensive and sobering, and that is a pun on the views of alcohol and the harm. I'm not going to add a significant amount, but just to emphasise a few areas. You know, alcohol is part of many of our people's lives. You know, we consume it. Some people make it, but it does have an impact on people's. Has an impact on people's lives, as said in the report. People are dying younger than they need to. It's impacting on families, and it impacts on the way we can live our lives. So it is to be taken very seriously, even though it is part of our culture for many people. When you look at the data, we know it does impact broader than just our physical health on individuals who are drinking. You know, as Cheryl said, it's impacts on domestic violence, child neglect, antisocial behaviour, serious violence, criminality, our road traffic injuries, and it also increases demand on our hospitals, our blue light services, mental health services, and you know, social services as well. And the other important thing is when you look at inequalities, alcohol-related harm is more pronounced in communities of greater deprivation. So in tackling alcoholism, you're tackling an alcohol harm, you're tackling inequalities. As I said, many of us are potentially drink alcohol, and it pains to say there is no safe alcohol drinking level. You can kid yourself, you can read papers which talk about 1 or 2 glasses of red wine is good for you, etc. There are no safe drinking levels, and that changed. So, more working age adults are dying from alcohol related conditions than the top 10 cancers combined. That's the quantum of the challenge. And if you look at the picture across consumption, there's some good news and some not so good news. Amongst the younger adults, so 18 to 34, they're drinking less. So part of that is around price, it's about awareness, it's about knowledge. The zero and low alcohol opportunities increase, but tend to favour those who can afford it. So you're going to get an inequalities bias there. But we are seeing an increasing consumption 55 plus or older adults. And if you look at our demographic profile and you fast forward 5, 10, 15 years, this is going to amplify the challenges around the harm caused and the impact on our services, particularly our health services and particularly on social care as well. When we think about children and young people, and we've had some conversations this morning about children and young people, they are directly impacted around alcohol, and particularly those most vulnerable children. So we've talked about care experience young people, we've talked about needs, witnessing domestic violence in their home, serious violence in their home as well, parents arguing, neglect and physical harm. These are all contributing to our adverse childhood experiences, and we know the impact of multiple adverse childhood experiences have on children's outcomes. So it's really critical. And worryingly, in Devon, our hospital admission rates for alcohol specific conditions for our under 18s, and these are children and young people, is double that of the national average. And we are seeing twice as many girls compared to boys who are being admitted at alcohol. These are under 18s. So as I said, a very sobering fact. And while they are alarming, these stats, there are some proven actions. We know what we can do to reduce harm caused by alcohol. And some of the key evidence points to the important role of national government and legislation. The Department of Health and Social Care recently published its 10-year NHS plan. As directors of public health, we were fighting that the government introduced a minimum unit pricing. Scotland did it. Deaths were reduced by 13% by reducing the minimum unit pricing. Unfortunately, in the plan, my own personal view, I think it was fairly weak in terms of its alcohol addressing, and it talked about introducing mandatory requirements to bring alcohol labelling in line with other health and nutrition, way shy of taking the baton and saying we're going to reduce alcohol harm by introducing minimum pricing units, as Wales did, as Scotland did. But in the absence of that drive from central government, we're going to have to do things locally. It's up to us to try and turn this tide. But there are things we can do. It's not Devon County Council or public health responsibility to do this on our own. We do need to work together in partnerships. There are partnerships set up where we're working closely with the police, primary care, specialist treatment services, the voluntary and community sector, and the NHS 10-year plan does point to local communities doing local actions. So if we do want to reduce harm, I think, and improve outcomes for children and young people in Devon, which we do, reduce premature death, which we would all want to, and illness, then we do need to address the harmful drinking levels we have in Devon. And it can be seen as quite humorous and quite jovial, but I know for certain, and I'm one of them, it affects people's lives in Devon. People have lost loved ones because of alcoholism, and children are being impacted within families where there's alcohol as well. So I don't want to labour the pun, but it is a sobering read. I welcome people's questions. I'm privileged to have Lex and Anna here, who are far more knowledgeable in the subject than me, and answer any questions you have. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you, Steve. Richard, we just, I don't know if Anna or Alexa wanted to add anything at this stage, or you may be, I know there's some questions from members that you may be able to help respond to.
We're happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for being here. Richard.
Thank you, Leader. I won't add much to this because quite a lot has been said, but I, as the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, I'd like to thank the Director of Public Health and Communities for this annual health report. And if already proposed, I would second the 9 recommendations that are on the sheet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to
you happy
propose.
to
Is that
propose
for
it?
noting and supporting?
Yeah. Denise.
Thank you. I'm really happy to support all of this. Just a question really about whether we know about how habits have really changed. So obviously we're talking in here about public houses and licensed premises, but I would imagine far more people are buying supermarket cheap offers which promoted. From my own point of view, as a somebody who picks up rubbish, we find regular stashes of bottles, cans. It's obviously habitual drinking, but I wondered if there's anything we can do to work with our supermarkets in order to encourage healthy offers and discourage unhealthy.
Yeah, thanks. I could give my view, but I'll pass it over to Lex and Anna because they're here and I'm far more expert than me.
Yeah, I would certainly agree that habits have changed. And one of the things that we noted during the pandemic was that shift out of drinking in establishments where you have controlled measures and we have quite clear trading standards into home, where I know when I pour a glass of wine at home, I'm certainly not using a measure to see how I'm doing it. And you know, a bottle can go across 2 glasses if you're not careful. I think in terms of working with supermarkets, where we've got to get that balance right about what we can do locally and where we really need national policy and guidance around it. But I think it's really important that we see locally our role in shifting the culture and thinking about how I would describe how, for my generation, seeing an absolute cultural shift in drink driving move. So it's seen as an absolute no. I think it's really alarming that we're seeing that kind of behaviour start to creep back in, and what is the role that we can play in setting a culture locally, I think is it.
Just to add, if I may, one of the recommendations talks about licensing, and when you look at the data and some really prominent studies, and you map deprivation, and what do you see in those areas of greatest deprivation? Access to alcohol, smoking, places to gamble, places to fast food takeaways. There's a strong correlation. So I think there's an important opportunity, I think, for us to get into the licensing space, to work with our colleagues in districts around where they're providing licenses in terms of establishments, and how we can support them to think about alternatives and where we're not putting licensing areas where there are greatest deprivation and therefore greatest access to alcohol consumption as well. So it's a really important opportunity.
Can I just come back on that? When you say licenses, though, are you talking about shops like supermarkets, co-ops and places that are absolutely piling it up as well as pubs? Right, thank you.
And when you think about the minimum pricing unit, that is about the vision of the stack 'em cheap, stack 'em high, places where you can go and buy alcohol very cheap. In terms of the volume, it's not necessarily impacting on the kind of the village pubs which we might know and love. So that's absolutely where we're targeting today's.
Just to add to that, I would absolutely agree. There's evidence that alcohol consumption is increasing, the number of high-risk drinkers is increasing, and the number of low-risk drinkers is decreasing, especially in over 55s. A lot of that is about at-home drinking. Also, what I would point out is that it's not all necessarily about volume of alcohol drunk. So I think Gerald and Steve both mentioned that the alcohol harm is distributed so that there's more people experiencing alcohol harm in the more deprived areas. But actually that's even though people in more deprived areas tend to drink less alcohol. So the same volume of alcohol, the same number of drinks, if you don't have a good social support network, if your health is impacted by the chronic stress of living in deprivation, living in poverty, that same volume of alcohol can cause more harm. So in terms of sort of actions, what we can do about it,
accessibility, availability of alcohol is massive, but then also kind of supporting the strength of communities, working about these sort of causes of the causes, the wider determinants of health, what you've been talking about today, housing, employment, all of that feeds into.
Dan.
Thank you, Leader. Two separate questions, observations. Mr. Brown, I sit on the licensing committee in another place. I would welcome an approach from public health to members of that panel and indeed all the panels, because I think it is a significant challenge to ask members to potentially turn down a license application on the grounds of a location in a socially deprived area. I think that is a significant challenge for a committee, and I think there is some training and support probably required as part of the collaborative working that we're talking about across levels there. My other comment possibly is around, there is a challenge here in this report around drinking, and I note that binge drinking is defined as being over 6 units for women or 8 units for men, and of course that is quite a challenging concept to get out to the public, because I don't drink, but I could go out tonight and have 3 pints of lager and inadvertently become a binge drinker as a result. And I think trying to find the balance between educating people as to the risks of alcohol, but doing so in a manner that is not branding them, almost. In my other place, I'm a school teacher, and trying not to be like that, I suppose, is a difficult challenge to meet, because I would question how many people, when confronted in a pub with their 3rd glass of wine or their 3rd pint of beer, would see themselves as a binge drinker.
Absolutely. I think communication is key, isn't it? And being able to meet people where they are with the scientific facts. So we don't get to set the definition of a binging level. I think it's interesting because when people talk about 3 pints, you might not notice if that is of 2.4% strength or 6% strength. So how are we enabling people with the tools that allow them to understand that? I think the licensing point is a really important one, because actually the mechanism of licensing doesn't give you it's not that permissive in terms of being able to consider alcohol and alcohol harm. We are working on the feasibility of a sort of an alcohol harm tool that can support those licensing decisions, and building case histories from other areas which have been implementing it in terms of how can you use that evidence in terms of the 4 licensing objectives that we currently have. We were anticipating there being a national shift that we haven't heard yet in terms of those licensing objectives. So still remain, is that okay to remain optimistic? That might still be coming, but also there's evidence from elsewhere that people submitting licensing applications are using the information from that tool to mitigate some of those risks to do with under 18 drinking, for example, in their applications. So how can we promote that to the people who are making the applications in the first place? I think.
Thank you. Jackie, did you?
Thank you, and thank you for this report. It's really helpful. I always actually circulate our public health reports to my parish councils who I report to, and I know they welcome them and actually read them. And I think this is, yet another sobering report, to say the least. One thing I would just ask is, I understand it could, I know it can be very variable, but in the understanding risk levels that's in there, it might be useful, and this talk about the units, it'd be useful. I know it's, we see it everywhere, but actually to include it here, what do we mean by different units? Because I think time and time again, people kind of conveniently forget and think 1 unit is a big glass of wine, and it's not. It's actually a very small glass of wine. So it helps people to get a grip on that and just remind themselves, because otherwise, just there, people say, oh, well, yeah, I only had 14 glasses of wine last week. Fine, but actually, maybe not. Okay, other than that, thank you very much and very helpful.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll include that. The benefits of not being printed anymore is we can update it. So we'll get updated with there's a little chart you can put in with that.
Thank you, members, and thank you. Sorry, Donald.
Yeah. Can I just draw the Cabinet Lead's attention to the progress part of the report as well, because I think it's very important. And I just would like a few points of clarification, because if we begin good work, I'm always got that question of, will we continue to strengthen that? So I just wanted to alert Cabinet members to some of that. So I would have a question for the Director of Public Health on the smoke-free generation. I'm aware we received significant funding linked to the work we do in trading standards. We're very concerned about trading standards, vaping, links to exploitation of young people, So I would just like to ask if that funding is continuing, because that was in previous reports. And then if not, what can we do about it? Because I'm seeing significant impacts. The second one is for Cabinet Lead for Adult Social Care. We're hearing that the dementia strategy, Amy, is now there, and so we've got a strategy, and so what? So I suppose my question is, where's the dementia strategy going? Because if you join the dots in this report, we've said that our over 55s are very vulnerable. We know we've got huge issues with neglect in our adult social care population and huge vulnerabilities there, and we're now hearing about alcohol impacts. So I'm asking a question about where that will go. And then I know, Leader, you've raised with me directly, and it's not anywhere in the report, so I'm just remembering all the conversations we have about dentistry provision for children and young people in Devon, and the real concerns about that both nationally and locally. And if not included today, I would just wonder if we could have some kind of update. It was my understanding that the investment in dentistry in Devon was an underspend area, and I think we should always be alerted to, if we're not providing a service, where does that money go? Does it go to the bottom line and NHS locally, or should it be held so that we can actually make sure that the money identified for dentistry for young people in Devon does not go elsewhere, and it is held until we can actually action some of the work around about that? Because we do know at case level that it's awful when we find out some of our most vulnerable young people have significant oral health issues, and really quite disturbing. So just a few questions to draw our attention as Cabinet leads to checking in that things that have been started continue, or that you get a brief at some other stage to make sure that we don't lose progress in some areas, but perhaps you could clarify.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. In terms of the smoke-free generation money, our understanding is we get an additional allocation separate to the ring fence of circa about £1 million. Our understanding is that's going to be absorbed into the main grant, so that will continue. It is used very wisely, and hopefully members have seen the recent publicity around closing down 5 establishments, 4 in Torbay and 1 in Honiton recently, for the illegal and illicit sale of vapes and tobacco. Our training standards team are doing an incredible job going in and identifying, often with the help of dogs, hidden, very sophisticated hidden tobacco and illicit vapes, and closing them down, which is fantastic from a public health point of view. In terms of dementia strategy, we're working really closely with colleagues in adult social care and the NHS around dementia. I'd also talk about FORS as well. You can link the alcohol with the FORS and the impact of FORS as well. So really confident and happy to have some conversations around how we make sure when we think about dementia, we think about harm and for the aging population, alcohol and the impact of alcohol is included there. And the dentistry one's really important. I'm actually, Richard, we had a really good update at the Health Wellbeing Board 2 weeks ago from the NHS talking about dentistry. So the NHS, if you like, buy widgets. So it's called a UDA, Unit of Dental Activity. And as Donna alluded to, often they are underspent because they can't get the dentist to undertake the activity, so you have leftover money. Some of that, not all of it, is being spent on good oral health promotion programs, trying to prevent through working with educational establishments and early years settings with children and their families to prevent tooth decay. The other positive thing, and people sat around the corporate parenting board yesterday would hear around, they also put in additional funding into services for care leavers and care experience young people to access dentistry in Ilfracombe, but also in Plymouth and now also in Torbay as well. And I think the latest reckoning was about 135 children of care experience have accessed that within the last 12 months. So some positive news, but I think fundamentally getting more dentistry in, trained up, accessible is going to be a key challenge for the NHS they're going to be facing over the coming months and years as well. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Steve. Paul, did you want to come in and then I'll come to you, Denise?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be a brief leader. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Cheryl, for bringing this forward. Cheryl, I enjoyed your preamble, and if we were going to do something about biscuits, I'd have to make some kind of declaration myself. Well, please help me. So there's nothing new under the sun, is there, on this? So I left Exeter University in 1983, psychology. I did a year on the psychology of addiction. I had hepatitis at university, which meant I couldn't then drink, and I still don't drink, hardly drink anything at all. So I've watched from the outside as this all happens. And this brings me to the thing that we can't deal with in this motion, but is underlying it all, which is the production and the marketing and the direct marketing to vulnerable people. And I first became very aware of this as a journalist in the 80s when a mate of mine did an article about the rise in alcopops and the way you could see the evidence, the deliberate evidence from big companies, you know, Allied Domecq, whatever, these big companies, probably don't know if it exists anymore, but those big companies knew exactly what they're doing. And they still do. So somehow we've managed to get cigarettes into black or worse packets and also hidden behind screens, you know, and also at the most extraordinary price. And yet those alcohol products, which are designed to attract the eye of the young, because they're pink and they're purple and they're full of sugar, they're out there still, and this is a difficulty, and we have to be careful not to be hypocritical here in Devon. I won't name Donna will know well that there is a product produced in the heart of Devon that is well drunk in Glasgow, isn't it? It goes up there. We won't name it. We don't want to promote it or condemn it. The fact that it comes from a religious organisation is slightly strange. So it's a mixed picture. So yes, we can't do anything to sort of condemn the producers of this, but I think the marketing of it is terrible. The advertising of it is toxic often as well. Maybe there's a space that we can think about what we can do around that when we come to, as Dan said, local licensing committees as well. But short of that, thank you for bringing it forward. I think it's really good. And I think, Steve, I think you mentioned, would invite you to say, you know, clearly you've had some knowledge within your own sort of extended world of alcoholics. You know, I have too seen, and that's the thing. It's an addiction, and the terrible conduct that can come from some alcoholics. It's the alcohol, it's the addiction that's doing it. It isn't them, and you can give them 1,000 chances, and they're back on it. So anything we can do to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Denise.
Thank you. Donna prompted me to look at the actions at the back, and it was just really how adaptable they are. If we're looking at the smoke-free generation, do we encompass in that work the nicotine pouches that seem to have started coming forward that children are starting to use? And secondly, I have had a few emails recently about ketamine and wondered where that would sit in your work. No, thanks.
Thank you. I'll defer to Lex to about ketamine. We have done a lot of work in that space. But just to go back to Vice Chair, the commercial determinants of health, which in essence is companies who have products which we know impact negatively on people's health, but promote it in a positive way. So there's something about an honesty, and we, you know, some of us, not all of us, remember very vividly the advertising around smoking and how it was good for you, and really how our marketeers and let's be honest, I think the last reckoning about £800 million a year is spent promoting positively alcohol versus the money spent on reality. I don't have a problem necessarily with the promotion of products which are not illegal. It's the words they use and the phrases they use to convince you that it's a healthy thing. And as I say, growing up in the 70s, you know, there were slogans about smoking is good for you, clears you, and you remember that 50s clearing your lungs kind of stuff. It completely against the evidence base, completely fraudulent. And so I think for me, absolutely the commercial determinants of health is something we're really interested in. And I think my point around how you tackle that, a lot of that is national government. It's about legislation, it's advertising, and there are some positive things. And you know, thinking about what the NHS plan does talk about in terms of food labelling for high ultra processed food, targeting specifically children and watershed. So that's a really key important part. Nicotine and gums and patches are all part of that. How do we reduce nicotine containing products? And ketamine, I'm going to hand over to Lex, because interesting, we did a radio Devon interview just last week on it,
I think it was
week before.
the 9th of July,
9th of July, yeah.
11:30, if anyone wants to listen back to it. Yeah, so just to put into context around ketamine, so we are seeing a substantial increase in ketamine use nationally and locally, but from a very low baseline. So in terms of our young people, the most prevalent substances remain by quite a significant margin cannabis and alcohol. I just think it's important to hold that context because there's a lot of national coverage around ketamine at the moment. Quite promisingly, we're actually seeing a reduction in presentations in our young people's drug and alcohol service, specifically around ketamine. Nevertheless, it's a really, really important issue that we're taking very seriously. We've pulled together multi-agency partners just a couple of weeks ago to look at sort of, I'd say, 3 core areas. So how we're ensuring everyone who needs to be informed around ketamine is informed, and that particularly includes the education sector and the young person sector. I want to say something about what drug and alcohol education looks like, because I think it can be very I'm trying to think of a better word than enticing, but I can't think of it under pressure, to think that actually drug and alcohol education looks like specific education around ketamine or specific education around cannabis, vape, etc. Fundamentally, we want young people to have comprehensive drug and alcohol education based around some pretty core skills around risk assessment, decision-making skills that they can apply, because the market will always change, the trends will always change, and they need those core skills that they can apply. But alongside that, the core prevention is exactly what you were talking about in your earlier agenda items in terms of safe housings, feeling connected, having alternative things that they can do, reducing exclusions. All of those things enables young people to build their resilience factors, to reduce the risk factors that drive them towards health harming behaviours, be that alcohol, be that ketamine, be that vaping, be that, you know, that pattern will constantly change, and to build those resilience factors. And what we know is if we can defer the start of use of alcohol or any drug, then that is a massive protective factor in lifelong use generally. I sort of lost my way a little bit, but saying we're also, ketamine particularly affects young people in that sort of transition age between 16 and 25. We have a young people service and we have an adult service when it comes to drug and alcohol, but just to assure you that they are working very, very closely in developing that ketamine pathway. It's not as well trodden a treatment pathway as we've got for things like opiates, because it is an emerging trend, but there's lots of work going on.
I just say thank you for that, and I think that comes back down to hopes and aspirations for the future as well, trauma-informed working and really helping at an early stage. Thank you.
Good. Right. Well, thank you, Lexa and Anna and Steve. That's great. And Gerald, sorry, Richard.
Sorry to just throw one more thing in there. I was looking at all this and thinking of things we can't do because national government hasn't put something in place we can work around, and thinking about licensing. And listening to Paul's, I think about the experiences of life and people you've known who with alcoholism and those on the edge of alcoholism and alcohol dependency. And is there anything we can do on a local level? Because without being punitive about, I say, a location here, can't alcohol, can't out there, and listening to people who've had issues in that area, being able to go out and buy your groceries in the supermarket without coming across on your spatial journey doing that alcohol that is in your face. Is there anything in the licensing world that we can do to make it possible that you can do that without getting to the point of screens or whatever it be? It seems daft if you're on a personal journey yourself and you can't interact in your environment without the thing that you're craving.
Yeah, I'm happy whether Lexa and Anna wants to come in, but I'm certainly aware that there are some examples where local intervention, so if you like a local minimum pricing unit or local agreement, I think happened in Plymouth a few years ago. The issue being is it does rely on all the partners to work together and to agree it. And you can imagine a few actors in that space might take a different view, but I don't think it prohibits us from investigating it and seeing what we can do. It's just going to be more challenging, obviously.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for that. And like I say, thank you very much for the report. Anna, Alexa, Steve and Cheryl for introducing it. No, I'm not going to write to that. No, anyway, so it's been proposed and seconded. So can I see all those, the recommendations, the 9 recommendations, all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Excellent. Right. So agenda item 17, which is the SACRA. That's for noting. We're all happy to note that. And then again, for delegated actions, urgent matters, that's for noting. Happy to note that. And then finally, the forward plan. You will see that the actually within the forward plan, we've got Tipton School, but that's actually been moved to, thank you. That's been moved to November rather than September, I think, or October. Just as a point of information. So, and any comments on the forward plan? No. So we can agree that. All happy to agree that forward plan. Excellent. Which brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you all very much. It's been a long meeting, but I think it's been, you know, very useful. And so see you all very soon, like in the next half hour or something. Bye.